welcome to our retreat for Monday, December 17th, 2018. Our town board retreats are an opportunity for the board to meet around a table and just discuss items a little bit more informally than a regular meeting and a little bit more in depth. So we have a list of topics that were proposed on our agenda. Is everybody good with the list of topics that we've got and the order? Okay. So the first item on our agenda for the town board is the town board goals, and our packet's got a copy of the 2018 town board goals. And thought on this is just to have a high-level discussion of, we like the 18 goals, we want to make some changes, and then rather than kind of drafting on the fly, we could follow up at a later time or follow up individually with Matt and with your suggested changes, then we circulate those and then, adopt it at an upcoming meeting once we have a final draft. But that generally works better than trying to draft on the fly.
Sure.
So right now, a lot of the goals kind of relate to the different committees. I'd like to see us add a goal for the CAPS committee. I don't think we have something in there for CAPS right now.
Okay.
My comment around the goals, I'd like them to be some to have more metrics associated with them.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Especially financial stability, business retention. Are we, retaining 100% of the businesses, 95% of the businesses? Are we reducing our debt by 10% year over year, 5% year over year? But I think stating the budgeted goals, I don't want to create stretch goals that we can't meet, but what's in the budget, I think we should be clear and say our financial stability is around retaining business, the existing revenue stream, and we're going to continue to reduce the debt. So let's write that down.
So my question was, the way these are written, all of them end through the following action objectives. Are we measuring, was that how we measured them last year? Like having specific objectives that we're setting out to meet, and there were just sub-bullets below each of these? Is that what we're going for?
We did have a more expanded version.
Yes.
In the past, we've attempted to do what's been stated as far as having priorities or objectives under each one, and in Paul's financial summary is on the budget every year. He ties back the board goals to what's in the budget, so we can do that and then distribute it to the board.
Yeah, we had 2018 proposed priorities, and there's top 3, but they didn't necessarily map directly back to specific goals. Like, there's downtown Superior Parks 1 and 2, but then is that part of strategically manage and enhance our open space? Just that alignment, connecting the priorities to the goals, I think is pretty important. Or like the Jefferson Parkway, it doesn't fit within any of the goals specifically, but it's really important to us.
So personally, I hate this goal-setting process because it is, like to Kevin's point, it's not measurable, it's not actionable, and we've got this thing on the wall and we never look at it, and I don't really think that there's much value to be gained in actually going through. So as far as I'm concerned, this is fine, let's move on, but what I'd like to actually do is go around the table and articulate what we actually want to accomplish this year. Like, what are the 3 to 5 things that are important to you and see if we can have some alignment around specific goals that at the end of the year, we can say, okay, we've actually achieved these things and we haven't achieved these other things. Because this to me doesn't actually direct us in any sort of direction. It's just, kind of like nice platitudes about, we want to improve transparency and improve communication, and all those things are good, but how exactly do you go about doing that? Right. So, my recommendation would be, this is fine, and let's actually articulate the things that we want to actually achieve this year.
Okay. Why don't we do, and we did that about a year ago, or maybe even 2, where we where we had this top 5 list, and it was a great exercise because we found that there were about 3 that were on everybody's list, and that was a good thing. So maybe why don't we circle back with that, since it might be, I guess we could do it on the fly, or we could do it, I guess I don't really have my personal notes down of my top 5, so would someone like to put some things out, and we
I mean, I've
talk
got
about
some.
that?
Yeah, I've got
I've got
some as well.
Okay, then let's go through some.
I want us to enact regulations related to oil and gas. That's goal number 1. Goal number 2 is actually form, whether it's a subcommittee or just, some sort of delegation of the board, and reach out to CenturyLink and start active negotiations to try to acquire the property at 128 and McGaslin. Number 3, I want us to once and for all resolve the $10 million civic space commitment with Ranch. And I think the only way to do that is through an amendment to the applicable documents. Number 4, I want to go home rule. And then I've got other kind of ancillary things, but those are my top 4.
Okay.
Mine are pretty similar. So just kind of as a high point, I had just financial stability overall with business retention and attraction, and putting some metrics together with that. But oil and gas was on mine as well. CenturyLink was on mine as well. With CenturyLink, I kind of had it as a sub-bullet of being community focused with our parks, open space, and recreation. So with that, I also had prioritizing Riverbend Playground and formalizing a community indoor space, and that ties into the $10 million that, somewhat of a tie. And then I also had making a ruling or decision on home rule, and finally revisiting whether or not we are going to update our comprehensive plan, which I'm interested in doing.
Okay.
I'll go next. So I started this a little differently. I went back to the 2018 goals and I tried to score how we did. Typically with where I've worked in the past, every year we rank and rate our employees. As terrible as it sounds, it's fairly effective. As I went through the 5 goals, the first one, enhanced financial stability and business retention, I couldn't even figure out how do we measure that, as everyone's already said. I think we're a C in terms of business retention. Financial stability is an A. So my first sort of new goal for 2019 is, let's really leverage economic development and actively pursue every commercial opportunity we can, both as part of downtown Superior, the empty vacant space, Superior Marketplace. Let's wrap that all under the economic development umbrella that we've been talking about. Then I kind of had a catch-all for community, which Mark and kind of already alluded to. One is, obviously, I went a little further than Mark. I wanted to see us break ground in Parks 1 and 2, as well as advance the Riverbend property. And then, let's formalize community space at some point, in the next couple of years. But beyond that, I think the rest of what Mark and Ken laid out maps right into that.
Okay.
Sure. My first one is improved transparency of communications. I have a couple ideas of how I'd like to do that, which we can talk through in that part of the agenda that we have later anyway. Like Ken and Neil, I really want to work on our business mix and economic stability. I think we need to improve our relationships that the town has with businesses, so I'd like to see us work more closely with the Chamber, Brixmor, Rock Creek Village. Certainly they have the latitude to bring in whatever tenants they would like. I think if we can improve those relationships, we'll get more of a say in who they bring in. Updating the 2012 comprehensive plan is huge for me. I might actually put that above the other 2. Along those lines, CAPS is in the process in 2019 of creating a master planning document. I'd like to see a master planning document created by all of our committees, outlining what are their goals, What are they going to do? Those sorts of things. And then finally, I really want to see us act upon OSAC's recommendations and actively work to acquire open space. I agree with Mark, the CenturyLink property is a priority, but I would leave that to OSAC to say, hey, we made this list, let's actually take some action on it and go after some of them.
Kevin or Sandy? Sandy, we're going through kind of our top 4 or 5 items that we personally would like to see. We're just kind of seeing how those tie into board goals and priorities.
I didn't hear anything that wasn't necessarily, first, I actually like the goals. I mean, I think goals are important. I think you can have a tactical list of things you need to get done, but you need to make sure the tactical list of things you're trying to get done align to your overall goal. I'm reminded of that all the time whenever ACES comes and speaks to us, where as much as that's hard work for me, but then I'm reminded about the goal we have around environmental sustainability. That orients me to the importance of the work that ACES is doing. So I actually like, there's 3 to 5, there's a bunch of stuff, of course, you want to get done, but I think these are kind of different things. I'd say from my priority, the oil and gas, I'm very aware of things that come up and then get reacted to and then become a priority. Oil and gas, yes, I think that's something that we need to react to, but I'm not sure I put it on the top of the list of accomplishments for the year or things that I sort of must get done. Yes, it's important, but to me, it's important that we, the stoplights in town work. I think we have a good, and maybe that's not a fair analogy, but, we have a good plan for oil and gas. I wouldn't want to list that on my top. For me, the acquisition of the open space, I think maybe we need to talk about it because I think OSAC, frankly, has done their job. They put it on top of the list, and now it's our job. So I don't want to put anything back on OSAC and say, well, we're waiting on you. No, it's our job.
I guess to clarify that, I would just say I would like to go back to OSAC and say, hey, you made this recommendation a while ago. We're finally ready to do something about it. Does this still stand, or was there anything you wanted to update?
At the last meeting, OSAC made the recommendation again.
Okay.
It's been remade.
Thank you. Then I'm with you, Kevin.
Right. I think we need, when I think about the $10 million civic space commitment, I put that in a broader bucket of we need to get to the other side of what we're doing around civic space, which I would say includes community centers, town halls, rec centers, library, what do they call the peripheral libraries? The library satellite. And then as part of that, I want to get to the other side of that decision, and then as part of that, resolve the $10 million civic space commitment. Say it is not, home rule is not on my list, unless I learn that it's the silver bullet, that there's a silver bullet for home rule. To me, we've got a big year around economic development and a lot of things that need to be approved. And what we learned about home rule is it's hard and you need to really engage the community. And I think unless home rule is a necessary silver bullet for oil and gas, I'm personally not going to be supportive of. So I need to sort of learn more about that, what's happening there. And home rule takes time too. We decide that we want to prioritize it. We're not going to resolve it in the next 12 months, I don't think. I think it's going to take some time. But it's an agenda topic. So I suspect we'll talk more about that. And then in terms of the economic development and the investment that we're going to make in the economic development, I don't want to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and not look at that as a line item and say, that was not money well spent. And that doesn't mean we have 5 new businesses as a result of that. These things have a long tail to them. It's going to take a while to be successful, but we have to show some measurable progress around the economic development. And so from my priorities, I think that's between the acquisition of the open space and investment around economic development, that to me just feels hugely important. And then I'd say arguably third is the get to the other side of the civic space conversation. But, you know, I wouldn't want that to be our tertiary priority. These are all big things that I want to get done.
So economic development, community space, and then what
Open
else?
space.
Acquire open space.
Acquire the open space.
Open space, okay. Okay. Sandy?
First, I apologize for being late around being on the board. Life happens too. It doesn't always work out. And I apologize, I haven't heard everybody else's priorities. But for me, I think a key issue we have got to grapple with in 2019 is the indoor civic space topic. I'm not saying we have to build anything, but I think we have got to think through what we think we might want to happen in downtown Superior, and because that may help us solve the problem long-term, but are there some things we can do short-term? Because it is not a small problem that we continue not to have meeting space and places to engage. So that's a top priority for me. Second, probably equally as high, is the topic of economic development. I think we're doing this on a catch-as-catch-can basis. We're not organized, and we are missing opportunities and not doing this as well as I think we can. And so for me, that is probably the very top of the list, is economic development, and really understanding what that looks like. It's not just retaining our current businesses, but it's also attracting new ones, but also just making this a great place to do business and to make sure that our residents also believe in our businesses and are proactive in supporting them. You know, that's something you got to think about. And then I would agree that we need to try and move forward with trying to obtain a very large piece of open space that happens to sit up behind all of us. So those are the primary things for me. I'm not convinced at this point on home rule. I'm not against it. I just feel like it could be a huge time suck for us right now, and we've got things that we need to deal with. And then I think we've got to keep our foot on the gas. Sorry, bad pun there, on oil and gas. But I'm not sure that that's a crazy priority because we're already on it. And so as long as we stay on top of that. But the other things I feel like we're not doing a good job on, and we've got to jump into them.
Okay, good. I think my top would be economic development. We've made a commitment to spend more money on that, and I'm looking forward to that agenda item to really drill down on what do we expect to get out of that more money. And I agree with all the things you just said, Sandy, about things we can improve on, and others. I think you mentioned the chamber, better coordination with the chamber. I think we've got a great opportunity there with new leadership coming in. So yes, economic development is, if you do nothing, things just dribble away. So we definitely need to keep a keen eye on that. Oil and gas regulations, in my 4 years, I've never seen any bigger turnout than when we had an oil and gas issue. And I mean, that tells me that people were legitimately scared and fearful of what might have happened there. And I think we absolutely owe it to residents to respond to that. We were lucky that it turned out the way it did on that particular one, but it's not necessarily over. So I think we responded to that by keeping on our path that we're already on, which is regulations. And I think a key piece of that is home rule. I think even if it can only do a little bit, it's one of those things that I think that if it were already in place, we would already be talking about what are the things we could do as home rule. The economic side, the sales tax collection side of home rule is the reason I wanted to push it in 2017, early 2017. I continue to believe that we're missing out on hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, because we're not collecting our own sales tax. So that we should have done that and should continue to focus on that. So home rule. Civic space is also a priority. And I think along with, somebody else mentioned town hall, I forget who mentioned town hall. we have designs for a town hall expansion, and we shelved those, largely for, I think, because we were coming up on an election in 2016. But we've still got people in 4 different places around town, and there's great inefficiencies there. So I think that's something that we should not completely just pretend doesn't exist. So civic space and town hall space issues in general. And then the comprehensive plan. I think the comprehensive plan probably is due for another look. It's been, by a number of years, it's time, and I think we should have that on our list. So those are my items, but good exercise.
I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of
Yeah.
synergies there.
There's a lot of synergies there. Yes, okay. So town board goals, we've gotten kind of our top items, and I think we've had a decent discussion about town board goals and kind of putting some bullet points under those goals. So why don't we circulate a draft of what we've discussed and perhaps have it ready for the next meeting to adopt it? Or if we're not there, then we perhaps have more discussion and adopt it at a future meeting.
Can that discussion be over email, or does it have to be in person?
I think we can do that over email. I think we can circulate drafts and go back to Matt with comments, and he can kind of collate the different comments and collect the different comments. Okay. So we're good. Moving on to communications.
Before we do that, do you mind if I have Sergeant Chamberlain
Thank you.
introduce
Yes.
Troy?
Thank you. Yes, Jim.
I think I've met most of you. This is Troy Wolf. He's a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office, and he'll be taking over my position in September when I leave. So he's going to start coming to some of the meetings and get acclimated, and so you guys kind of get to know his face and see him.
I got to meet a few of you a little earlier, but thanks for having me. I'm sure I'll see more of you
Yes.
as the year progresses, so thanks.
Thanks, Troy. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
All right. Okay, communication, community engagement.
So I'll go first because I suggested this first bullet point here about the e-blasting weekly committee meeting schedules. I was just looking through the town's website, a couple things that I just noticed that were lacking. It doesn't seem like the calendar is being updated regularly to catch all the committee meetings that are being scheduled. And while I'm sensitive to inundating people with unnecessary emails, I think it would be helpful if we did regular emails about, and my suggestion here is a weekly email, but it could be bi-weekly or monthly. But this is what's going on this week, right? We've got an OSAC meeting, we've got a PROSTAC meeting, we've got a CAPS meeting, just so the community knows what's going on, because we want to encourage our residents to, number one, be aware of what the committees are doing, attend the meetings, and if we don't actually update the website regularly and we're not actually getting this information out to the community, it's kind of hard to help people stay engaged. So I just think in terms of a process improvement, just regular communications with the public to let them know about specifically the schedule of committee meetings, I think would be an easy, low-hanging fruit way for us to just improve transparency, communication with the public, and participation in
No.
those committees.
Just to make sure I'm following you, so we have the, I guess, e-notifications where you can opt in to what you're interested in. Is that where you're adding? So where you could specifically say, I want to know this, or you just wanted to put out on the overall e-blast where everybody gets it if you're signed up for everything? Like if you're signed up for that general.
Yeah, I've opted into everything, so I don't know
Yeah,
if I
me
necessarily
too.
understand where
I would like it to go to the
station.
e-blast, so it goes to the whole town. And I would also add on to Mark's idea, I think it'd be great if it was, Monday, here's all the committees that are meeting this week. And then if we could ask the committee chairs to write out maybe one sentence of, here's what the focus of the meeting this week is for that committee in plain English, with a link to the agenda. Because I know the agendas are on the website, but I think sometimes we get really bogged down in the jargon and we don't necessarily have a clear picture for outsiders of what's being discussed.
One of the things both schools do is they send out a weekly e-blast, and I'm sure you get them, and they do a very good job of synthesizing what has happened and what's going to happen. It takes time to write those. You've been getting from both schools, right? So it takes time to write them, but they are very helpful, for everything you've missed, plus what's coming up, in the next week. And if they went on Friday, if they went on Monday, I think Eldo sends them over the weekend, and they get lost. And SES used to spend some, I think, on Wednesday. But either way, you kind of got a very good pulse on what's going on and what's important right away, and then there'd be links to all the other things going on. And I think one of the things that we're struggling with is that there are so many different distribution lists. Folks opted into some, and they forgot what I don't remember what I've opted in on. I don't know what I'm missing. And I'm not sure how to go back and change it. It's almost like we just need a wholesale change and just have one distribution list. People probably don't want everything. So I'm open to discussing how do we get something that everybody, but at the same time, get the minimal amount of information that people want.
Can we just start with maybe talking about what the baseline is, since there seems to be some confusion? So what is the baseline of, let's forget about the CAC, because it's not, it's just, that's a channel. There's communication that's drafted, and there's the things that are available to us are the website, Sentinel, and the email blast. Correct?
Correct.
And the e-blast and the Sentinel, I believe, are the same distribution,
No.
correct?
I
The
believe-
the
yeah,
Sentinel
that's
is one
correct.
document,
Yeah,
but
that
it's the
is
same
correct, yeah.
distribution
Uh-huh.
list.
You're
Yes.
right, email, right, but the,
And then what I was referring to is e-notifications, and that's where you can customize further down.
So those are
Just want Parks and
specifically
Rec,
on the
and
website,
don't want
yes.
open space.
So I would like to see Mark's proposal go to the full e-blast list. So it's essentially similar to the Sentinel in who it reaches, but it's a separate communication rather than buried midway through all the other stuff.
Yeah.
So the question then is, we're hitting the front side, letting people know what's coming. Right now, all of the committees are already for the Parks and Rec newsletter doing summaries of what they talked about the prior month. Do we want to add that in there also so people see what's coming and then what is also discussed previously? That way there's kind of that full circle of what's been going on.
Yeah, I'm great with that. I mean, I think more information is always better as long as we can present it in a format where it's easy to get to the part you're interested in.
And I will just real quickly, so Ken probably knows, so actually it's a struggle for us to get the actual agendas.
Yep.
And that's something we're going to try to work with the committee chairs on. So we have a ProStack meeting this week. Staff still hasn't received any communication from them.
Yeah.
So some of the breakdowns, most recently, because we're in this kind of push and pull trying to get info, and that's something that we're hoping to have addressed in January with setting some harder rules. And that's something that we'd like the board supported and maybe emphasizing that communication from the chairs back to staff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but my whole idea with this is I want people to know that we have these committees that are meeting, and I want them to be able to attend them if they want to. I'm wary of creating too much work for staff, and I don't want to create like a new subset Sentinel that now is like being sent out every week, because that's obviously just hours that's taken away from staff. But it shouldn't take too long to just say, hey, this week there's a ACES meeting, and this week there's a historical commission meeting. If you're interested in attending, this is when it's going to happen. And that way, let's see if that drives some attendance. I think in a perfect world, if we have the agendas, we can link it to them. If we have a little blurb, if there's something specific, right? There's the River Bend Park, when that comes up, when ProStack's actually going to be considering that, that would be the sort of thing that you definitely would want to emphasize for people in this area. You want to see what the plans are going to look like for this park, come to this meeting. But just in the ordinary course, I think it's just helpful to let people know that these committees are meeting and this is when they are, because otherwise it's hard to get people engaged.
Right.
And I would also just add, I think we also need to be careful about how we're syncing up what's on the calendar with what's on the committee page, with what's on the first page of here's the upcoming meetings. Right now, all three are different depending on the committee. So it can be really hard to tell if you want to go to a committee. There have been times when I can't figure out when it's going to meet. I know December is really challenging with the holidays, but I think maybe, again, we push this to the committee chair. I think that's a reasonable expectation of if you're meeting, you need to make sure that the right information's out there.
And I would like to make sure that when we do, if we can, let's try and include things that are not necessarily ours, but that are related. So if we know there's a Rocky Mountain Fire Board meeting, or we know there's a chamber meeting that people might be interested in, or something happening, you know, that might be particularly relevant from the library.
As long as but let's just draw the line on that. I think it's a great idea, but let's spend a second to draw the line. I do not want I don't want to communicate, so for example, the Second Avenue property meeting. I would not
No, I
want
would not
this.
include that. That's not an official relationship with, I mean, they're holding that meeting to inform the residents.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's
where
a
are we
good
drawing,
clarifying.
where are we drawing the line then?
On the town, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to answer.
Well, for me, it would be things that we definitely have a formal relationship, which would be Rocky Mountain Fire. I mean, let's do things to increase our engagement with Rocky Mountain Fire as opposed to continue to stay isolated. The chamber, as they may have activities that they want to promote.
BBSD.
BBSD could be, I mean, you know, anything like, I don't
It's a fire
see,
hose
something that a developer is doing, to me, is not in that category, because that's somebody who's going to come to us and make a request, but.
I think, so I think you're
But if
honest.
you got a way
I
to,
think there's basically anything that we have that is under the supervision, although that's not the right word.
yeah, but Rocky Mountain Fire isn't understood,
No,
but we
but
do
it's-
have a professional
Right,
relationship.
but it's an
with them.
example of hopefully we have a representative either at that board meeting or potentially at that board meeting. So using, so things like the committees, whether or not it's, Boulder County Consortium of Cities, which I don't think anybody would ever, no resident would ever go to that, right? We have a tough time getting city residents to go there, but,
So essentially, we're saying it's only committees, Rocky Mountain Fire, Chamber.
Well, it could be the library board, people may be interested in going to the
Just because we have a
Louisville.
financial relationship with the library, it actually does make sense.
Well, yeah, and I put that
because-
under committees. I just want to make sure we're clear, because I'm concerned that we'll run into trouble if we have a developer saying, I want to host a meeting, I'd like you to include it. I think we need to be clear on why are we not including them.
How about we use
I
this-
would actually err on, I'd like to see if there's any meeting, if somebody submits it and wants it to be included, I'd say why not include it? I'd rather people be as informed as possible.
I think that gets dangerous, especially, picture what happened with the Town 15 this year. That would have confused whether this was an official thing or not.
Yeah, you get it, yeah, agreed.
That's fair.
Yeah, you get into these things where it starts to look like it's a town
Right.
meeting, and I just don't think we want to go there. We sort of went there and we didn't like.
I think, I like the suggestion about Rocky Mountain Fire, where the jurisdiction is like clearly like town residents are subject to it, and otherwise wouldn't necessarily know that these meetings are happening. People who have kids in BVSD are getting notifications from BVSD, but they're not necessarily getting notifications from the fire district. Wouldn't necessarily know that the fire district is having an election or something like that. So I think we can do that. And, let's see how it goes. We implement this and we iterate as time goes on, and
Yeah.
if there are things that we need to add to it, we just add to it.
But I think it is a good point that you raised earlier about updating the calendar, and if this could be somebody's weekly task is putting this together and checking the calendar, that way it stays, I think the calendar and these announcements will stay a little bit more current.
Yep.
So that's good. Okay.
and I think if the committees are not submitting their agendas, then I think the point of escalation should be the trustee representative, right? So I heard, for example, that CAPS didn't get the agenda, and so it didn't even get calendared for that meeting, not the one last week, the week before last. That would be, if you're not getting it in a timely manner, then that's an email to me saying, please call and get the agenda.
Well, I think this also gets fixed. I know that at the beginning of the year, Karen's going to host a meeting of expectations, helping out, kind of an orientation for chairs and vice chairs. I don't know if that was ever truly communicated what the deadline was. I mean, I was a chair for 5 years, and I don't know if there was ever a formal deadline given to me. Staff would reach out to me and remind me to do it, and I would start to do it. But if I knew, hey, Friday, 4 o'clock, here's your deadline, I probably would have plugged it into my calendar. We communicate that and that might fix itself.
Okay. All right, so we're good on e-blast? Published board emails.
So this is one I think, yeah, everyone's looking at me. You've heard a lot about this from me. I would really like to see us follow Louisville's lead, publishing out emails that are sent to the town and our response to them. I think there are a lot of topics that people don't know others are talking about until it comes up at a meeting. I don't know if this is part of what happened with Baldona, but I heard from some residents who said we didn't know this was being talked about until it was on the board meeting. So I think that's one example. I don't know that it's the best example, but I have certainly seen people say, you know, we wish we knew what the board is hearing.
I think just on the Weldona thing, I think we went and actually posted notices on doors in the neighborhood
Yep.
too.
We did a lot beyond the emails, and I don't want to say that that didn't happen. I'm just reporting that some residents said that they wish they had known how many emails were being sent to the town about it.
So what does Louisville do?
So they take, it's essentially a PDF document of, hey, here's all the emails in the last week. It's on the website. It's quite a tome to
That goes
wade
to like
through.
town council at louisville.co?
Or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like our town board.
So the town board at superiorcolorado.gov, just publish everything that is sent to that general?
Posted weekly or monthly?
Weekly. So it's, I mean, it's pretty long, but it's, if a resident does want to read what's happening, they have the opportunity to see all of that.
I think that's a better idea. I don't want to put you on the spot, Laura, but you know, when you kind of gave an update last week, I think the risk of a single person giving an update based on what came in your inbox is interpretation.
Of course.
And if we posted the whole thing, that's a way to avoid that. 'Cause
Agreed.
I did have at least one person email, like, well, that's not exactly what my email said, but I mean, and that's where you get into a pickle, but if the whole thing's
Of
out there,
course.
then it's out there.
Yep.
So-
And just after that, I had several people email me and say, wow, thank you so much for saying that in the town meeting, because I had no idea. Completely agree with you. I want to get away from it being my interpretation, and that's part of why I'm suggesting this.
So Matt, I tripped over something in the code that I actually asked you about once, not to put you on the spot, and you said was revised in the code, which was, we actually had something in the code that there would be like a town computer,
Yeah.
right? So tell me
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
So anything that goes to the town board email, this was something that was set up by a previous board. Somebody could come in and read those emails here at town hall. Yep.
Right, so it's a very, okay, so.
I mean, they
10
gotta come
right,
down
10 years
here.
later, nobody goes anywhere, right? So everything's
Yeah.
available online. It's the
Right.
same infrastructure. Instead of logging on the town computer, you're clicking through an appropriate link that's on the website saying, you know, read the emails from the week here.
Yep. Yep.
So how did we do it from a technology perspective previously? Were you here then?
Mhm.
Okay, so how did that get done? Was, if somebody emails, you know, town board, that's easy. And
Yep.
it's, you know, but if there's, I don't know what our emails were today, but there's, you know, emails around, you know, I'm getting an email from, no, that's a bad example. Ribbon cutting, you know, so, you know, and then we get a thank you note from the business where somebody was, you know, and then now we're responding saying, oh, wait a minute, my lunch is running late, I can't be there till 11:30, you know, hold the scissors, you know, until noon.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of stuff we're gonna post? I mean, that seems,
So
somebody
those-
making a judgment?
I'd like to see it all posted, and people can wade through and find the parts that are interesting.
I read,
agree.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just, I read through Louisville's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I did it fairly quickly. It looked like it was only the original emails and not responses that were being posted. Is that true?
It's things sent to Louisville, not necessarily the
So nothing like what you're talking about, Kevin, where you're saying, hey, I'm running late or anything like that. Or you're saying that would be coming.
Just inbound, just
Right.
inbound only?
I would really like to propose that it be both, but that does not follow.
I don't know how you do that though, because I'm sure you can do it, but it becomes, yeah, you just get multiple strings. I mean, you might have one message that came in that 3 of us replied to, and that's going to be another topic of, you know, who replies to what, and which I think is a good discussion. Because I do think replying is is.
I think, so what if, so let me just see if I could, what if we settled on, for now, inbound townboard@superiorcolorado.gov, it's out there, and then if somebody wants to do a FOIA or Colorado Open Records request on responses, then they could do so. And that gives them a place to start, because a big part of your point, I think, or what resonated with me at least, was nobody knows where to start.
Right.
If you want to do an open records request, okay, you have to know emails from Kevin to this person on or
Right.
about that date, just so Phyllis has some idea of where to start. So this gives them a starting point, increases the level of transparency. Okay, so now let me just ask the question, I think, because I've seen nodding heads, so most people would probably be supportive, but what if it's an email that's not to town board, but somebody clicks through our 7 names? Is that also?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. And what if Ken was on the email? Because does that create any other conflicts, depending on the context? I don't think it should. But
So,
if they didn't use the town board and they just used everybody, including Kendra and 9 other people, does that change the dynamic of what can or shouldn't get posted? Or if the person asked for it to not get posted? I don't know.
I'd like to see it where if it goes to any of the 7 of us or to the town board. I don't think if Kendra's on there, it's a problem, as long as we're not getting Kendra's response to it posted.
So I think, I like the idea of the town board at superiorcolorado.gov. There's no expectation of privacy there.
Right.
Somebody's obviously sending it to the entire board. They want all of us to read it, right? So I don't think that there's any expectation that a resident would think that this would not be public, right? But if somebody sends an email, even if they're under the misunderstanding of, the fact that Cora exists and you can open records request, if somebody just sends an email to Neil and say, hey, Neil, this is really important to me, please keep this private, or they're just asking you something, I think we run the risk of disincentivizing and kind of quashing the desire for some people to actually feel comfortable speaking out.
Yeah.
And so I'm fine with the generic, town board, but if it's just individualized, and to Kevin's point, if somebody actually goes through the steps of calling everybody out, I don't know. I think at this point we just start with the generic town board and take it from there, because it's just, I think you're just opening up the door to disincentivizing communication.
I'm concerned about these unintended consequences. I've already had people who were emailing me and then stopped emailing me at our town address and brought it to my personal email address because they didn't want to have the risk of having their stuff read off during a board meeting.
I think it's very important in that case for you to, from your personal email, forward it to your town email. All public conversations should be on the record and shouldn't be done through personal email.
But that's not my point, and that's fine, and that's what I do, but to ensure.
And not a knock on you, but on that person. I think
But that's their choice. They don't want to have their stuff read out, because they now see that as a risk. If I'm a person that was going to reach out to the board and say, hey, here's my opinion, but then all of a sudden their email is going to get published or it's going to be read out, that makes them stop and say, I don't want to do that, so I'm just not going to reach out to the board. That's a lost opportunity for us to hear from one of our residents.
I would say to some extent, but people need to stand up for what they're interested in. If you aren't willing to put your name behind it, then I don't necessarily want to hear your idea.
Well, I probably disagree on that.
The city of Boulder, Boulder's bigger than all of us. The city of Boulder only does it to council@bouldercolorado.gov. And it appears they've been doing it since August, and it's strictly things to go to council at. I recommend we try that first. And then if we find out that we want, I got to be honest, there are people who didn't know my email address and they're asking me, hey, Sandy, what vet do you use? Because I have a public email address now. So, I don't know that the world actually wants to read those kinds of things. So I would really recommend that we start with just coming to the entire board, because, we all get random weird stuff, and And does the public really want to read them?
And this is consistent because, you know, a year or two ago, we adopted a policy where, at least on land use applications, public comment can be submitted by email, whereas like you used to have to come and actually speak in the hearing. So now we're actually, or at least we should be archiving all of the emails that we're receiving on a land use application up through whatever.
Sunday at noon.
Yeah, Sunday at noon before the board meeting. So this is, I think, consistent with what we've already kind of adopted and just taking it a step forward further.
So Matt, what steps?
Well, I'll discuss with Kendra, and then we'll bring back a revised code amendment.
Yeah, I do want to see, I personally, so two things. Number one, that was going to be my question. I'd like to see it as a codified, right? That would be good, so people know there's no ambiguity. Oh, I didn't know that was going to be there.
Right.
Nope, it's part of the code. West, the philosophical difference between how a couple of us think. There's a West End political boss, Martin Lamancy, who had this saying that's people in politics use a lot. Never write if you could speak, never speak if you could nod, never nod if you could wink. And then Elliot Spitzer updated it to say, never put it in an email. So I think, every conversation I have with a resident, I don't think is necessary to have it memorialized in an email. And I don't think it has to be shared with everybody. Sometimes somebody grabs me in a grocery store and they're a little sad about something that we decided. They're sad about the trees, sad about Weldona, sad about not making decisions, making decisions. And that's okay. Sometimes I get personal emails from people saying, that made me sad. And if it was related to a public hearing, of course it's going to get forwarded because it's going to be considered in the evidence. But I do not believe that every email, every conversation, every nod, every wink is just as you are all receiving those nods, winks, and conversation. It's not always my business, and I know you'll make it my business when you deem it appropriate. I trust everybody here, and I hope everybody here trusts me, and we're going to do the right thing. So I think it's a step for transparency with the town board. And if something does come to you that's, I don't want to say it now, but everybody here will know that I did have a conversation last year, but I did feel it was warranted to communicate, and I sent it to town board. I documented the conversation, sent it to town board at superiorcolorado.gov. And so people can always do something like that if they want something that's just listed out on the interweb site that we'll create.
Can I propose a different option rather than going straight to modifying our code? I'm still concerned about just the effectiveness of this. I mean, is it possible to run a pilot, 6 months, whatever, track usage, so unique users, how many people are using it? I mean, maybe we can reach out to Louisville or Boulder and say, hey, are people even downloading this thing before we start taxing staff with doing this? I mean, we have limited resources. I don't know how this can be used. I'm concerned about unintended consequences. And before we modify the code and have this thing set in stone, just to, if it doesn't work, a year later, unmodify the code, why not just start with the pilot?
Before we do this too, I want to make it clear to the community that anything they send to us as the town board is now public.
Yep.
Because sometimes we get things that are, people might not want to know the public to see it, and at least it'll make them think twice before they send a message that the public could view it. And,
Yes.
and generally people are always very, very good.
Yeah.
But, sometimes somebody might just, in the middle of the night, so we want to make sure the public knows that anything they send us would be published.
I like the pilot idea, if that's possible to do that, because I think it would be useful to have some link to where we can track how many people looked at it, and if we find.
Wait a minute, but the problem with the pilot is somebody you put it out there. I mean, it's the chicken and egg. Something has to come first. If somebody sends an email to townboard@superiorcolorado.gov, and then they did have a glass of wine or two, and their name's out there, and then they're applying for a job, and somebody does a Google search, and that document comes up, and somebody is saying something that was a little inflammatory, and their future employer didn't like that, and now they're emailing us, if we could point back to something saying, it was in the town code, and we had no choice, we voted on it, we made a decision, we did it, as opposed to, well, we passed a resolution to have a 6-month pilot in the meeting on January 22nd. To me, I will not support this unless it's in the code. I want it to be crystal clear exactly what we're doing with no ambiguity. I agree that a pilot would be nice. The problem with it's just the chicken and the egg.
Okay.
And I tend to agree with what Kevin said as well. I mean, if this is a decision that we ultimately decide to go down, let's just go down it and don't look back. Because if we go down the pilot and one person or 3 people are polling it, how do we determine that that's enough? Like, what's the metric for saying, if there's one resident out there that's coming in every week or downloading the emails every week, then I think we have an obligation thereon to continue it.
Right,
So,
and we can always pull it from the code, but
Right.
it'll take, it's 90 minutes to draft the code. I'm going to make that number up. Roughly 90 minutes to draft the code, 10 minutes to discuss. We're less than 2 hours. Right?
And in terms of implementation, all we need to do is create a new email that is on the town board distribution group, and everything to that email goes to the web. It's no effort on staff part other
are
than
you
setting that
considering
up.
like a real-time, like literally as
No,
opposed to just like a weekly, update?
I don't think it needs to be real time. I think once a week is fine, but I'm just saying from an implementation perspective, it shouldn't be taking staff time to do.
Wait a minute, so I think I misheard things then, because I thought we're only doing initial emails, not every single
Right.
email that hits town board. Because then
Oh,
you're
I
all
see.
by
And
chance.
that creates a
Yeah,
manual
that's true.
intervention.
Exactly.
That's true. Yeah, so if we want it to be just the initial email, then it will take staff time.
Yeah.
Right.
If
Somebody
we're
said-
open to replies, then it would be no time.
But we'll go back, we'll draft for process, the code amendment, you guys can discuss at
It would be nice if, so
meeting in January.
the millennial in me wants it to be searchable. The 50-something-year-old in me cringes at the fact that something is there for eternity. Is this a searchable? So if somebody searches the sender's name, are we making it an image file so it's not? Somebody help me here. Can we make it an image file so it's not searchable by name? And would that ruin the whole point of doing it?
I think we can do either. I would prefer it to be searchable. So, I would prefer it not to be hidden behind an image.
I just cringe.
I get it. Like, I've worked for government agencies as a contractor where they publish my cell phone out and they say, Laura bid on this opportunity. So I get it, but that's the reality. When you write something down, it is out there. And people ought to be smart about that.
It disincentivizes people to talk candidly. I think we're coming from on different sides of this.
Yeah.
Open records request is one thing.
But how can you do an open records request if you don't know what email is out there?
Because you have a topic specifically in mind. One thing is phishing, one thing is you know what you want.
Well, I guess, I don't know if somebody is emailing the board today complaining about Castle Peak. I don't know. Well, I do because I'm on the board, but as a resident, I don't know that.
I guess I'm missing, what's the problem?
I think we come into these meetings frequently where we're saying, oh, we've heard from residents this and this and that. Other residents are then coming in and saying, wow, I had no idea this was being discussed.
It only starts getting discussed at a formal point in a public meeting. So just because we receive emails doesn't mean anything's being acted upon, that people are making decisions, because none of that's happening. It has to happen in a public meeting. I think some people were frustrated how fast things happened, or maybe they didn't realize things were happening, but the fact that they weren't seeing emails, I don't think was the cause of that issue. I don't think the email thing solves that
Yeah,
problem.
actually, I think along those lines, we gotta be careful if we get a whole bunch of emails 2 weeks before a quasi-judicial meeting, do we publish that? And how does that become part of the record? Do we wait until after the board meeting with respect to, when those emails get published with respect? Because, arguably they come in, but we don't weigh them as part of the decision. Does that bring more people into the board meeting or not? There's a lot of pitfalls here. Not that I'm opposed to it by any means. I think openness and transparency would absolutely, and the fact that Louisville and Boulder are already going down that path is something for us to look at. I'm I want to tread carefully.
Could we look and see how Boulder and Louisville are both doing it? And, I mean, I don't feel like we have to be a trendsetter out there, particularly if we don't have that much interest in it. So if we could see how the two of them are doing it, maybe they're doing it two different ways.
Yeah.
But let's see what they're doing, and let's at least try and be consistent with them. And then if we hear from the public that we need to do different things. But, you know, I am a little concerned about starting full-fledged with searchable things until people get used to it. Because, you know, once it's out there, it's out there.
So at the next meeting, let's maybe bring back a report instead of an ordinance that we're voting on. I think that would be a little premature. I mean, given the way this conversation's kind of gone, and I have more questions than answers at this point. So I think it'd be a little getting ahead of ourselves to bring an ordinance. So let's have.
Could we also hear, if possible, reach out to Louisville and Boulder
Yeah, for
and
sure.
find out what their hit rates are, unique users and all that?
And given that Kendra represents half a dozen other cities, she might already have a memo prepared, you know,
Probably
with
does.
respect to this. So
Probably does. Okay. All right, good discussion. All right, First Fridays.
Has kind of been mine. I just put it out there to switch up locations and switch up times, just so we can hit a broader swath of residents instead of getting, I mean, I only started attending them maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago, but it was a lot of familiar faces every single time. So if we could start getting a broader range of folks, I think that furthers the goal of why we're doing it to begin with.
I think that remember, First Fridays it's not official, it's kind of an unofficial thing, and if somebody wants to have a second Tuesday and a third Wednesday, I mean, I think anybody can do whatever. First Fridays now is, you do something for long enough, it becomes a habit, a hobby, you have it. So it's a bit of a habit at this point for the community. I think it's great. I think switching it up periodically, maybe not a bad idea, but I think we did it once and, a couple times maybe. I think we could probably do it
We had
again.
a couple of afternoon sessions. I mean, First Fridays, I'm going to come back and say again, it was created by an individual trustee. It's not a property of the town. It is a property that was created by a trustee, and that trustee passed it on to another trustee, then they passed it on to me. I don't own it or anything, but they just said, Sandy, will you make sure it continues to happen? Because it's not the town's. So if somebody else wants to go out and create a second Tuesday or a third Wednesday or something, but, First Fridays is going to stay on Fridays. I mean, people are used to that. And if we want to switch it, to afternoon, particularly when it gets warm and it's nice and you could do it outside, then, we could do it. But for now, people are accustomed to it. And we are getting new faces. I mean, there were a lot of folks this last Friday that were new. And I think it changes as topics change. So, I think there are, when I ran for this board, I really wanted to see us start a quarterly public engagement where we would all be there and we would invite the public. We tried to do it. It didn't go off real well. I mean, we tried to do it with some formal topics. Maybe this is the time to start trying to do those quarterly public engagements again, where folks can bring questions to us. Again, we don't have a lot of meeting space in town, just thought I'd put that out there again. But, maybe that's what, if we want to try and switch it up to some other days and some other times. But, First Fridays, people are used to it now, and I think they're accustomed to attending it. So I would prefer we not mess with success.
yeah, actually, I tend to agree. I mean, I think you can always plan on First Friday of the month being maybe a different coffee shop. Maybe we can spread the business love around a little bit. But
Which coffee shop would you propose?
Well, I mean,
the other two.
we could go back to
Starbucks.
We got
or
two
did,
Starbucks
yeah.
in town,
We got
and we
Panera.
also have Panera.
Yeah, we do have Panera.
And I think former trustee Skumatch used to do her meeting at Panera, so we could move there. And I don't know, we might be able to do it at Doug's Day Diner. They're pretty busy on the weekends, but I don't know how busy they are on a Friday morning.
They're
So,
always busy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go on a Friday morning, but I know Pam pretty well, and I could probably ask her, and I'm sure she would accommodate us because it would give an opportunity for their restaurant to get exposure. So I'd like to see us personally leave it as First Fridays.
No, I was gonna say, I tend to agree, and maybe we, once a quarter we do, Taco Tuesday or some other day of the month, week or month.
Taco Tuesday.
We don't have any taco places, well, we have Ducks, but,
How about Wine Wednesdays?
but just to broaden it, I mean, Ken's point is valid in, the sense that there's a lot of folks that can't necessarily make Friday mornings because, their jobs don't allow for it, so let's try to find another contact point.
I really agree with Sandy, though, that right now, First Fridays is only once a month. So whenever we do move it to an afternoon, to your point about jobs, some people who regularly can come Friday morning can't come Friday afternoon. And with it being so infrequently, I don't like the idea that right now we have people who are regulars who come the first Friday of every single month, and it's in their schedule. If we are moving it around, and if not locations, but times, then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, I forgot about this because I only go 4 times a year now. So if we're going to do Taco Tuesdays, Wine Wednesdays, whatever it is, that needs to be in addition to First Fridays.
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me clarify. First Friday stays what I had started off. It doesn't, the only thing I suggest, maybe we move the location, spread the coffee love.
Awesome.
But beyond that, maybe we augment the First Fridays with a different day of the week, a different day of the month, something to capture folks that can't make the First Fridays.
I love that idea, and I'm happy to host a different one a month too. I mean, I like anything where we get to talk with the public. I think we get a lot more ideas from that than we do when we're sitting up on the dais and everyone has 2 minutes to say their piece.
5.
Well, when we cut it down, because the meeting is going to go till 1 a.m., which is understandable. I'm not saying.
Well, and not everybody wants to stand up at the podium. I mean, that's the whole idea, is that you come in a more relaxed environment. You're not on camera. It's a more casual.
And to me,
format.
that addresses Ken's concern as
Yeah.
well around people who want to comment and they don't want it to be a big thing. They
Yes.
want it to be a subtle conversation.
Okay. So we're good on that topic?
I think we just have to decide, or at some point, it doesn't have to be now, like what other day of the month, quarter, do we want to try to broaden it?
I think that's up to the individual.
Yeah.
Individual board members, just whatever you're feeling like. I mean, I do the annual event in May. I think early May, we do the mayor update. And I've thought about doing other mayor-oriented events throughout the year, but at a certain point you kind of it's to be too much. But I'll continue with that annual event. But I mean, to the extent that others want to introduce other events, I think that's great.
And so, Matt, if we do have an event, we should just reach out to you, pilot it, get it noticed, all that. Okay.
And we'll send out the notifications to the community.
To that point, we should pick a manager-mayor update date, get it on the calendar. Put that on the calendar. Okay. Engaged citizen.
Okay, so I asked for this to be on the agenda. So Sean Day and every computer. I don't know if anybody has played around with engagedcitizens.us. So Sean he's got a daughter in one of my kids' first grade classes. He's an engineer at Google and has put together this project really based on his frustration of trying to find information on our website using Granicus, finding that the search limitations from Granicus are just enormous, right? Unless the words appear in an agenda item, you're generally not going, or in the minutes, you're not going to find, a discussion. So, Sean designed this website, ingested all of the video feed going back to 2009 on our website, put it through some machine learning algorithms that creates a transcript of all of our meetings, pulls all the attachments to all the agendas in a PDF form in a very user-friendly interface. And it's a remarkable platform. And I've been using it a lot to go back in time to some of the town center negotiations to figure out what exactly was being discussed when the cost sharing agreement was being drafted and what exactly was their position. So you can use this to really find anything that you're looking for and sort it based on the number of hits, sort it based on date, and then you can also kind of use these word clouds that it generates to see kind of what was the frequency. So, Laura, just if you want to give a demonstration, if you want to just, so this past meeting, so this is December 10th, that's the town board meeting. So obviously we were talking about Land Rover and dealership. So you can see in the word cloud there. And, just typing in, Land Rover, it'll, using the transcript, it'll link to the video so you can go exactly to where those words were actually said in the video. You can actually then also go to the link of the actual transcript yourself and kind of search to see what was being discussed.
That would be the transcript.
So I think that's one of the neatest parts about it, is the fact that you can find it in the search.
Oh, wait a minute. So let's use this as an example, because those are
That's Whole Foods.
that's the Whole Foods. So
Yeah.
why do we click on Land Rover and get a Whole Foods conversation?
And the interesting thing about that one, the transcript didn't include any of the Whole Foods. So it's obviously
that would be the
pretty
transcript
powerful,
public outside.
I'm just curious, what's the progress here? How long has he been working on it? What's his plan?
Yeah, this is just a pet project of his. He's been doing it for fun over the past couple of months. And, he reached out to me and to Laura and just kind of showed it to us and said, what do you guys think? And I just thought it was just, it's really unbelievably awesome. And, I wanted to bring it to the board. Unfortunately, Sean had to travel for business, so he wasn't able to present here tonight. But he's really excited about it. And, basically, I guess what he's looking to do right now is to, this is kind of a beta version of the software. And one of the things that he is kind of hoping, because the whole point of this is, he wants to encourage people to be engaged citizens and get more informed about things that they care about. And when you have issues, at least on a local level, in town, that those issues may be traffic and safety related, right? Like you may care about the speed that people are traveling on Castle Peak, but you wouldn't necessarily know where to start to figure out where am I going to find information about when this has been discussed. So you can use this platform to put in like Castle Peak as a search term. You want to just type in Castle Peak there?
Sure.
And
Castle Peak doesn't typically come up because of the way it's.
But you can see kind of, or like let's do Tesla, right? So go to meetings home and type Tesla again. You can see when, so obviously on April 9th, 2018, that's when we held the hearing approving the FTP on the Tesla dealership. And then there's the planning commission meeting from a month prior. And it'll show kind of the ranks of like how often the word is actually mentioned in the transcripts of each particular meeting, so you can kind of see the genesis of certain terms. Now, obviously, your search is only going to be as good as the term that you put into the search. So if you put in some generic term that's going to be used a lot, put in Starbucks, I'm sure Starbucks is going to come up a lot. But if you're looking for something specific, if you're looking for, speed bumps or, speed bumps and Waldona, things like that, you'll be able to, more easily figure it out. And one of the things that Sean is kind of looking to do and build into this platform is the ability for people to create alerts. So if there's things that you really care about, Castle Peak and speed bumps, you can create an alert, and then you will get a notification from this system, and then you'll know that the board actually discussed an issue that you otherwise would have missed.
One interesting example that Sean was telling you about is when you put in pickleball, which I know has been a topic lately. If you actually look through the agendas, you don't see it coming up until 2018, but if you use Engaged Citizens and you search, you do find results much earlier than that, going all the way back to 2013. So that's another example of things that people would have no idea are being talked about without a tool like this.
So he's gone back and indexed everything we already had?
Not everything through 2009. So, I think we have videos going.
So pretty good. And then all the transcripts, this is another thing that I find very helpful. They're all done by machine learning. So they are usually up there by the time I get home from a board meeting. Right. I can already see the video and I can already see the transcript. Now, because it's done by machine learning, it's certainly not perfect. I can tell you if you search for Squaczynski, you're not going to find anything because the machine has not learned my name. But it is really helpful to have those transcripts, to find specific parts in the meeting, even right after the fact that you want to get back to and rewatch something.
So, great tool, this is awesome, I'm glad he did it. What are the next steps? He's trying to get feedback from us? Is it something that he wants incorporated formally as a town resource, or what's the path for this?
I think right now, he's looking for feedback in terms of, what do you guys think? Is this something that you're actually using? Is this helpful in terms of, doing research on various topics that are coming before the board? If you're catching any bugs, let him know. You can kind of work those things out. But his hope is that this is going to be a resource for the community to just learn more information about things that are going on with local government. And this is something that's not necessarily unique to Superior. You could do this with any municipality. So if this turns into something that he does on a wider scale, that might be something that happens independent of us. But right now he's a Superior resident. He cares about the goings on in local government, and he's offering this resource. It's free, and let him know what you think.
So I think it's, first, it's cool and it's impressive and it's great that somebody cares enough about the community to volunteer their time. You see a lot of people that are volunteer their time in committees are showing up to the first Fridays. There's a lot of people that are doing things for the community at home on their desks, and Sean's obviously one of those people, so kudos to him, and I'm grateful. This is obviously a very powerful tool, and I think we need to be a little careful around whether or not the town sanctions this as a tool, or it's just something that is one thing that an engaged citizen can use as a data point to collect information. I like it sitting next to the town. I would not, without an agreement with Sean, his organization, to understand data use, who owns this data, does he own the data, where's this data going, understand the fidelity of that data. If Sean decides he moves on and somebody else takes this over and they decide that they're going to try to use this to be more of a pro-development town, and so where the anti-development stuff starts disappearing from the search and the pro-development stuff starts showing up in the search. Of course, he would never do that. Of course, there's no big brother that is doing that. Nobody cares about our sleepy little 4 square mile town enough to do something like that. But I think a lot about data, and the what if bothers me a little bit. So I think, again, number one, awesome work, thrilled that we have somebody that cares enough about our community to give us a tool, and I think it should be just that, a tool that's available for the community or for us that sits completely next to the town of Superior, and we say, thanks, if you want to do that, you're leveraging publicly available information and you're making it searchable, and that sounds great, but we cannot, at this point, without formal agreements, embrace this any more than, hey, that's cool, in my view.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And as individuals, when people complain and say, hey, you guys got to get your act together, well, people are looking to commercialize data, and one day we will have a better way for you to search this. We have a member of the community who has made this tool available for you at no cost. And if you want to use it, that's fantastic. It's not an official Superior sanction thing. And by the way, again, this is great. I'd love to have an agreement with him and understand data rights and things like that. But he's doing this on the side of his desk. He doesn't want to do that yet. It's just a pilot, right?
So he's working with a few other companies right now. He has offered that the town of Superior would be welcome to it. So I think he probably would be open to some sort of agreements if we wanted to go that route. That said, I think it can be an unofficial tool as well.
I kind of agree. I think it's a really cool tool, and I think for right now, sitting alongside everything else we have out there, it's a great opportunity for residents to kind of troll back through all the old information to get a very quick update on everything. And I think as a business potentially matures, that might be the time to engage, a more formal relationship. But for now, I'm going to keep using it. I mean, I just touched it, I just dropped into it yesterday, and I was pretty amazed at what's available.
The one thing that I would put out there is Sean has been very receptive to feedback, and I've sat with him at his desk and kind of worked on some of these features and figured out how can we make it better. I think the sooner we were to eventually do a partnership with him, the more say we would get in terms of how it develops. Not at all saying we ought to do that now, but putting it out there as future food for thought.
I think, also, given the fact that, now we have a board comprised of people, specifically with like the town center stuff, right? Where none of us were on the board when those documents were signed, right? We lost a lot of institutional memory with Sandy, Chris, and Rita leaving, and then before that. So, this is a tool that, is just one tool of many. One option is to go back and just watch all the videos and read through all the documents, and that's helpful too in and of itself, because you want to kind of understand how things happen. But when you're just kind of looking for specific topics, the word clouds I think are really interesting, because you see kind of what were we really talking about at that meeting. And sometimes they're not necessarily completely accurate, because maybe like one conversation took a longer time, and there was just a lot of usage of that one word. But I think it's brilliant, and I encourage everybody to use it. I understand that we don't want to necessarily sanction it as a town official platform, but how does the board feel about at least getting the word out to the community that this thing exists, and we should go play around with it?
I think if somebody wants to do it to CAC or their personal Facebook, have at it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that I don't think it should be e-blasted out, because it's not a town function, but I think there's plenty of other channels that it could be blasted out to. So in a related topic, and this I think came up during the campaign, that this idea of creating a Wikipedia-like platform of topics where people are jumping into topics that we may have been familiar with for years, and downtown Superior, for instance. I mean, we have various amounts of institutional knowledge, but there's a lot of history there, and so where's the one place that someone could go? I mean, I know you could go to this particular site and you could get a bunch of keywords, but I mean, to me, I would like a summary that I could read in a few minutes and get the salient points, and then move on or drill deeper if I wanted to. Now the problem is this, I don't know that this is something we task our staff or even any individual with. I think it'd be a nice thing to have, and I think ultimately it could save staff time, could save all of us time, but, because I'm sure they, field calls from people, hey, what's up with Weldona? Why is it blocked? What's up with, why isn't there a park over there? All these things that have been going on for years, some of them. Could it be archived into many of the topics are things that are still living and would, much like Wikipedia is, it gives a baseline information, but then there's updates.
Well, Reddit can kind of serve that purpose.
And Google Groups as well.
And Google Groups. I mean, that's one of the benefits of both of those platforms.
Okay.
Is, sure, there's the timely stuff that, this is what's going on, but, a lot of what the value of Reddit are these, the ability to create these, subreddits on specific areas. And if you want to, learn a lot of information about, whatever that particular issue is, there are these people who just, volunteer their time to, put together resources, and you can pin those up at the top. You can, and naturally, like over time, the more valuable posts kind of float to the top. They rise to the top.
But how do you so that takes So Reddit works when you have a pool of a few million people, and then they're filtering down for our very small community where a significant, people are under-informed, I don't want to say under-educated, under-informed around, say, for example, the relationship we have with Louisville Library. I would argue that a third of the people were not living here when that relationship was created. A third of the people didn't pay any attention when the vote happened. And the remaining third have some memory of, oh yeah, I think there's some financial stake between us and Louisville, but there's probably fewer than 50 people in the town, and 10 of them are here, that have a clear understanding of the financial relationship we have with Louisville, and that it's severable. I'm going to write that down because I want to see if the word cloud picks up my severable.
Say it 10 more
I'm
times.
guessing no, people say.
If I would enunciate better, it might pick it up. It's not real time, but that would be creepy.
I mean, it does have a lot of library things going.
Right, but anyway, but the point is, right, if somebody, like, we would never get Reddit to a point unless somebody took a lot of time to get Reddit informed around the Louisville Library relationship. And then even if it was, I think when I signed up, there were 112 people that had signed up. The better landing page for somebody to learn about the relationship we have with Louisville Library is our webpage, right? And it's the, and I actually like the one, we have 4 columns, I think, and one is I want to learn about. And I like that, and we just need to do better. Maybe it's once a quarter, we pick a new topic that we need to update. And, next quarter, it's Louisville Library. And the quarter after that, it's relationship with Rocky Mountain Fire. The quarter after that, it's relationship with Boulder County Sheriff. And I just try to do a better job on doing that. And then, after 8 quarters, we might have all the big topics taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that, and I don't disagree that the firm's, the town's website, should have objective information about all the things that people are looking. I want to understand the library contract, like, here it is, the voters approved this ballot measure, we entered into this agreement, here are the links to them, and here's the link to the library law, and this is all the information you need to know, and these are the services that are provided. Great. But, there's no reason why, and the nice thing about Reddit is it can be more, nimble. It's going to take a little longer to get our town's website updated because of limitations on staff. And, if somebody really cares about the progress of the skate park and they want to put up a post about the skate park and, like, look at what happened, this week, and then take pictures next week and then the following week, and then it's going to allow for comments. That's what the town's website doesn't do, right? And it's just, they're different tools, and they're both valuable. And Reddit, you're not going to just snap your fingers and have everything that you could possibly want in an organized subreddit. But over time, I think there's still going to be considerable value. The more users we attract and the more interesting content we have on Reddit, that we should be, they should be working synergistically, right? Like they shouldn't be mutually exclusive.
Yeah, maybe, I will admit, I'm glad we experimented. We're starting to bleed into the Reddit topic. Maybe I'm glad we experimented with Reddit. I just don't get it. And maybe I'm just too old and not a good enough user, but I didn't really get it. And when I started moving around in there, I don't really like it. It didn't feel like a safe place for me to hang out, as goofy as it is. Facebook's kind of a safe place for me to hang out. I'm starting to like the moderated content. I realize that Reddit, the value is it's not moderated. The problem is it's not moderated.
So Reddit is moderated.
Well, not the stuff that, you start shopping around, it's...
Well,
Our Reddit is
Our
moderated.
each
Yeah.
community is different, but our Reddit is moderated.
Okay.
And Reddit as a whole
We have
also.
42 people.
Yep.
Hey, we're up from last week.
Well, Kevin, I had a similar experience. I spent about 15 minutes with it, and that's kind of my personal limit on how long I spend trying to figure something like that out before I kind of lose my patience and interest. So I have an account, but it's not
And
getting
I'm
a lot-
really old.
not getting a lot
I
of
last
mileage.
even less time. I looked at it and went, whoa, 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 whoa. So that concerns me, that it's something that maybe our older population will embrace. And we are getting more and more older folks in the community. So, I'm going to go back in over the holidays and try and figure it out when I'm not quite so crazed. So I'm not giving up on it. But I do find it not to be particularly easy for folks who are not totally tech savvy to get used to. So,
It's a channel, though. It's a channel,
Yeah.
just like Facebook's a channel, CAC's a channel. People like their channels. And some people like all the channels, and some people like one or two. And that's fine. And I think that will, no matter which one we like better, people will still continue to choose their channels, and that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, I think that the general frustration that people have had with the CAC is there's been a lot of valuable content that has been created on that, but it's impossible to search and it's impossible to find, so you lose things. And that's what, Google Groups and that's what Reddit's preserve, is your ability to go find that really interesting, thread that somebody put together about the history of the coal mine from 2015. So it's like, okay, I can go find that because I know it's there. Whereas, in the CAC, at least you saved your email and archived it all.
Or, along the same lines, if there's a topic a lot of CAC, like pickleball, that really animates some people but not others, you can have a separate discussion about that on Reddit and just, stay removed from it. Versus with CAC, your inbox will explode with any general topic from time to time.
So one thing we could do to possibly make Reddit a little bit more user-friendly for people who are used to CAC is just post a really quick tutorial on how to use if this then that to have the sub email you whenever there's a new post. I mean, that's yes, it's another tool. I know a lot of people don't know what if this then that is. But if we posted like a one-page PDF of step 1, sign up for IFTTT, step 2, link this channel to your email, maybe I think that might help people use it more if it's coming to their email, because I recognize that if you're not a regular Reddit user, you're probably not remembering to go to this website and check it just for Superior
yeah.
News.
I mean, I think that's a great point, Laura, because sometimes you get in there and you go, well, what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea. So if somebody was willing to do that for both Reddit and for the Google groups, I think it would be, I'm used to Google groups, so that doesn't bother me, but everybody isn't. So if we could create those things, it might be helpful for folks who, oh my God, now all of a sudden I'm out there on this thing and I don't want to be on this thing anymore. So at least they could read through.
One thing we could do to also, cross-pollinate between the CAC and the Reddit is even sign up whatever the CAC email list is for if this then that notifications, so that way when somebody posts to the Reddit, it is automatically emailed to the CAC of, hey, there's a new topic and it's on pickleball. And you're not going to get all the responses, but at least people from the CAC are getting told there's a discussion on pickleball happening.
Just to make sure I'm on the same page, what exactly are we trying to accomplish right now? Are we trying to discuss how the efficacy of this so far, where we want to go with it? Or it looked like we were just going to get an update. I'm just noticing we're an hour and a half into our 3-hour meeting. We haven't gotten very far. I just want to make sure we're spending our time as wisely as possible.
Yeah, actually, Ken, if we were to back up to what Clint had suggested a few minutes ago, it's kind of how do we annotate the oral history of this town over the last few years, some of the big developments. Wikipedia is a great platform that we kind of drifted into Reddit, but how can we capture some of the big milestones?
What is that, so not to be, why is that jumping the line over transportation safety, economic development? I remember talking about the Wikipedia, like education as a agenda topic. Sorry, Glenn.
No, and I'm fine putting that off. It was kind of a subtopic of this engaged citizens piece, but I think we're pretty much done with engaged citizens. I'm fine putting that on the shelf for
Yeah,
another
the one
time.
thing I would
because
just
I
throw
do-
in
Thanks.
is just to say to Matt, if you can continue to push the Granicus people to improve their software, so there is a searchable function on it. You know, I'm gonna be going to engage citizens a lot, because I frequently need to go back and find something. You're opening up every agenda,
Yep.
trying to remember where it is, and I think it's the same thing
Yep.
you're talking about with the Wikipedia thing, and that is the tool that we need, which Engaged Citizens is gonna be very helpful in finding old discussions that you frequently need to refer to. So,
Well,
you know, I
especially
mean,
with
I went back and did the search on the word Frisbee, because I can remember we had a lot of problem with the topic of Frisbee, just to see, and it went back to every single discussion we'd had on it, and I was like, holy cannoli, if we had actually had that available to us when I was still in the Frisbee world. So, we really need that on Granicus, though.
Well, the cool, so.
Yeah, but this is actually very, very cool, because it will refer
That's
to
all.
that.
And then, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
I like the, I want to figure out Reddit. I want to try to, I think one of us sent an email saying, we all got to sign up for.
I'll do a
it.
tutorial for
Figure this
everybody.
out. No, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out, but I think also it's only, the landing page, it's not going to be worth it unless you find some really good content. And I think we can, merge it in with Clint's idea with, okay, we can get better content. So Mark, I'll give Mark kudos for writing a really good layman's thing around quasi-judicial process, right? I've explained it a couple times and people go, huh? You explained it and it seemed to make a lot of sense. I think taking that good email or Facebook page or whatever you wrote and just put the update out there on Reddit, and then that way the next time somebody asks, oh, Mark actually did a really good thing on Reddit, and maybe there's somebody who's making a correction or an observation that gets marked up or marked down, see, I'm learning. So I think taking, or even the, you're probably a subject matter expert on the library, so taking the library, you're sending your understanding of the library agreement and putting that on Reddit might be an interesting thing, and maybe that helps drive adoption. Because I like the fact it's not, nobody's using it yet with the 42 users, so.
So does staff have any updates on, was that kind of another point of this updates agenda item? Do we have any staff level updates on Google Groups, Reddit, any?
Yeah, I mean, we did the Stay Connected, which is, takes, individuals to our website, and they can sign up for, it has a list of Google Group and Reddit and anything else they want to sign up for, and we're going to continue to push that.
It's a great landing page, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Anything
Now,
else?
other than trying to be more proactive from the Parks and Rec side, using, just continuing the link to Facebook and then our Instagram page and Twitter, which we've seen grow, bit by bit over the weeks. And then we have engaged with Granicus on their newest technology in terms of being able to earmark off of transcriptions. And so we're optimistic that as we go into 2019 that their technology's kind of catching up a little bit.
Okay, so I'll close out with one last piece on communications, and that is I had a conversation recently with Helene Meyer, who does Rock Creek Living, and they've had good success with Rock Creek Living being a neighborhood magazine, but she's interested in rolling it out to the entire town and needed to make sure we had 5,000 addresses, which we do, to get it to the entire town. And that could be another opportunity to have, and she would like to have town involvement, to have regular town content in there. And so that's, yet another channel. And a written one, a hard copy format, which we seem to be moving away from. And so this is actually something that, seeing success, a hard copy piece that's seeing success and could, could be yet another channel. So that more to come on that, but that's, sounds like that's moving forward.
At the Boulder County Consortium of Cities meeting, the Louisville rep was telling us, Kevin, correct me if I'm misremembering, that their number one outreach product is their mailed newsletters as far as just success rate. So I think that goes in the right direction.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Are we doing good on?
why are we doing an update on small sell.
So this was my topic. I had it under just kind of a general heading of I had a process improvements and then a technology improvements kind of heading, and not necessarily we need to talk about this at length. I know we're talking about the small cell agreement at the end of January, so I'm glad we're making progress with that. I threw on broadband about that. I know that kind of fell by the wayside. Generally, just to get a feel for where is Louisville right now, because we were talking about potentially re-exploring that if and when Louisville got to the point where they were potentially considering going to the ballot. But I'm also fine tabling that if we want to just move on to other things right now.
I know if we're going to talk about small cell facility in late January,
Yeah.
we're supposed to talk about that. And broadband probably isn't on the agenda, and if, maybe use this opportunity to talk about whether or not anybody, I don't know if the new folks have digested the report we did 18 months ago, or 12 months ago.
Can I just get a clarification real quick? The small cell that's coming up in January, is that an actual formal agreement for us?
It's a master license agreement with Verizon. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that?
Do we need to, is this our annual talk on broadband?
My vote would be let's push that to the next meeting. It's just I don't see any urgency to it, whereas I see urgency to talking about economic development committee decisions and home rule.
I mean, Matt, maybe if you want to put it in a digest and just kind of let us know where Louisville is.
Yeah, what I was going to say is we're trying to schedule our joint issues committee meeting in January with them, and we can have that discussion just where they're at, and then I can update the board.
We got a little preview of where they're at, same place
Yeah.
we're at.
Okay. All right, economic development services. We've got Superior Marketplace redevelopment in downtown Superior on the agenda. Matt, why don't you kind of kick us off here?
So we are making progress with Brixmor on a possible, since our Matt met with the board when he was last in town, they got interested on a more serious level than they have been in the past. They have their redevelopment person within the company that's looking at the center. We've had discussions with them just very on a preliminary basis on what they think they might need, and we're trying to schedule a meeting in early next year, January, February, with them. They're going to come out, show us some ideas they have for the center that we could bring back to the board and have either a work session or some discussion about on what they think would be a proposal for the Superior Marketplace.
Are they working in conjunction at all with the Planning Commission and our Northwest Sub-Area Plan?
They have been involved in the Northwest Sub-Area Plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. How about your thoughts on this, our new economic development budget, and what your thoughts are on kind of what that should be, what that money should be buying us, in other words?
Well, I'm interested to hear what the board has to say on it, really, and how you would like to use those funds for next year.
Yeah.
We had some initial discussion from a staff level, whether that's hiring a economic development consultant to use a portion of those funds that would come in and give you regular monthly updates on their activity, and really be out there focusing on the town and what they can bring forward for us. And that's kind of where staff's discussion on it.
So it's basically consultant or full-time, go kind of two directions there, consultant or full-time economic development person. But I'd be interested in hearing from board members as to kind of what you would like to see from that increased budget. I mean, whether it's and it kind of doesn't really matter whether it's a consultant or a full-time person. I mean, what are you hoping to be the deliverable from this individual or individuals, if it's consultants plural? Is it filling vacant retail space? Is it business retention? Is it ground up on the very limited amounts of stuff? Is it redevelopment of space? Is it all of the above? Or what are the priorities? I mean, what are we really hoping to get out of spending $150,000 a year?
I can start, unless Ken wants to.
I'll go second.
My personal bias here is we talk a lot about what a great place this is to live and to raise a family. It's on the webpage, you know, Superior is ranked as one of the best places to live. We don't have a similar message when it comes to doing business here. It's not a quick 6-word, like, do business in Superior, you know, the edge of Boulder County, or whatever it is. I mean, you know, whether it's a consultant or full-time member, I actually view that as a secondary discussion. But I think, you know, everything you just laid out, Clint, in terms of things that we need to do, whether it's filling the vacant spaces, fixing Hamburger Row, or, you know, working on downtown Superior, we've got to do all of them. You know, and these aren't things that we're going to solve in 2 years. That's the next 5, 10, 15 years. What's the business footprint look like for this town? Every candidate here, or every trustee here, we all ran on the fact that we want to diversify the revenue stream for this town, because we all know a big box down the street is the anchor for us. And how are we going to distance ourselves, or rather diversify away from that? And for me, it's about, you know, let's find a person that can start to pull all the different pieces of what we already have in place together. And I looked at what Erie was doing. They've got an economic development group, and I kind of theorized, you know, hey, maybe we can ask them to come in and tell us what they did. Their town is not significantly bigger than us. Geographically, they're very different. But, you know, I don't want us to invent a wheel that somebody's already got turning. You know, if we can poach some good information on how they started, what they got going, what the key learnings were, I think that'll be a good start. And then from there, how we want to staff it, you know, full-time staff, consultant, you know, it's sort of, like I said, it's a secondary issue for me, but I think this has to be an absolute focus, you know, whether it's $250,000 this year, or $100,000 this year, and $50,000 next year, whatever. It's at some point it starts to pay for itself. But for right now, we have to just really push this hard and really get the message out, so that, you know, every business roundtable, you know, every sort of economic development thing going on for the state, we've got a big booth for Superior. We're talking about what a great place this is, you know, how diversified our workforce is, highly educated, blah, 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 blah. That message, you know, a 2-page, you know, glossy folder is not out there yet. Or if it is, I haven't seen it. I apologize. You know, coordinating with, you know, town staff, Superior, Chamber of Commerce, the residents, all of that, pulling that message into a cohesive package that we can just drop ship to everybody that's thinking of opening a 15-person company. I mean, there's a number of businesses in Boulder that are outgrowing their space. Their employees are maturing. You know, we can pursue some of that.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, that's bringing in office. I mean, that's bringing in office. I mean, that's a different deal. You know, that's a totally different deal, but equally as important. I mean, because that's
having somebody that is overseeing not just one of these things, but 4 of these things. You know, you just pulled it. Maybe there's another thread.
Yeah.
I think is beyond the, no knock on town staff, beyond the current expertise of town staff. I think a couple of us could probably cobble together our business experience, and, you know, a little bit of me, a little bit of Laura, a little bit of Neil, a little bit of, we could create that person, but we have day jobs, and it's not at least it's not my level of expertise, it's not my expertise either. So I do want to have that person, but something that, I was downtown Boulder the other day, and a bus drives right by me. Have you guys seen this?
Downtown Superior.
Downtown Superior.
Yeah.
Really?
Hashtag housing goals.
It's on the.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's cool.
It's on the Flatiron
They're
Flyer.
on the Flatiron Flyer.
Yeah, they've been doing it for a while now.
Back from the Broncos game the other night. Had it on there. I was like, well,
Right,
look at there.
Which is great, and I'm glad, but was, you know, downtown Superior hashtag housing goals. I'm not sure, like, my economic development consultant might have said, hey, let's, you know, if you're buying bus space.
Best place to live, work, and play.
Yeah, right. Let's do, you know, let's spend a few minutes talking about branding, not just selling some additional, anyway. But yeah, I think it's all of those things. I do want to sort of be careful about grabbing a consultant out of Erie or Louisville or Broomfield, because we are unique. And I want to be very careful that we don't, unfortunately, can't use this phrase anymore, but I don't want to have that Me Too. Now, Me Too is going to be, somebody's going to search for that, it's going to be on here. Now, I'm very paranoid
I'll
around
put it in
this.
my recap, that's
Right.
attributed to you.
Right, but I don't want to be that also, you know, hey, we hired the same folks.
I don't know if you were saying take that person, it was
Yeah.
more of take the concepts
Right.
that they are doing to,
Yeah, some towns have been doing this for years.
Right.
We're new to it.
Yeah, there's,
Right.
when you look at the committees, when you look at our committees and you lay them next to other towns' committees, they look really different, right? And ours sometimes look better, but sometimes there's some obvious gaps. And, you know, everybody's got Parks and Rec. Not too many people have open space, nobody has ACES, but most people have some economic development committee.
and there's been talk of that. I mean, I remember Chris Hansen put together, well before I was even on the planning commission, I believe, he was talking about an economic development committee. So I mean, something that's definitely been talked about for a while. I think we've been very lucky in Superior to have the retail base and business base that we have for, you know, the time that we've spent doing it. We're really, really lucky. I mean, I go to a lot of national things and they talk about how do we get this retail and that retail, and I'm thinking to myself, we've already got 4 of those that you just rattled off there.
Right.
And so we're really lucky, but we've got to diversify. I agree with you. I mean, the world is changing, things are changing, and if you just sit back and think, okay, we're good as it is, no, it's not. Things will erode and things change, and so we do have to diversify. And so that's a good start. Additional thoughts on?
No, outside, I mean, Ken, I know you have words, but in terms of, Matt, I think the best place to start would be, you know, you talking to the guys from Brixmor and Ranch Capital and others, and, you know, we'd like to help in our local business owners, you know, Sonny and others, and, you know, we'd like to help you be successful and be a better partner. How could we help? And they may have some ideas for a consultant to come in. It's, you know, it's one of those things that I was at a social event and mentioned it, and we have a resident in town. I think she's probably too busy, but this is what she does for a living, right? I mean, I think that once we start talking about this as a goal, I think we'll find some pretty good candidates. So, but I also want to, you know, this is not suggesting a nationwide RFP. It's just, you know, kind of bootstraps. Let's talk to our local guys and see if we can get a consultant, somebody to come in and help us.
So I'm hearing not really a preference of consultant versus full-time consultant tends to be.
I think until we know what we're doing,
Yep.
I think, I tend to think a consultant. And if the end of the day, the consultant says you need a full-time person and I'll help you write the JD, that sounds great.
And actually, it's a good point, because we don't know how long we're going to be this person. I can't see it being a full-time staff member into perpetuity. A consultant's a better start. I think that makes a lot of sense.
So I actually would disagree with that. So as a consultant, I would lean toward it being more, not necessarily a full FTE, but maybe a half-time, but someone hired on a permanent basis. I see this as, we're not going to solve this in the next 12 months. It's going to be several years. And if we're talking several years, I think that's more suited to bringing someone on permanently, even if that's with an understanding that it's really a 4-year gig, 5-year gig. Consultants come at a premium, and I would be reluctant to hire someone knowing that it's going to have to be that long.
I don't think this ever ends. I mean, it's.
See, I have like
Yeah.
a mixed view. of
I'm saying
this.
best case scenario,
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a mixed view where this is the start of something incredibly important, and I want to make sure we go down the right path from the get-go. So let's make sure that we hire somebody who does this for a living, that does this day in and day out, can come in, and my preference is to start with a consultant, have them do an analysis specific to Superior. These are your opportunity areas, these are your next steps, this is what you can do, and give us X, Y, Z, and lay out what our path is going forward, and then we transition that into a full-time person to implement that plan. But that's what I make sure, in my mind, we need to make sure we have a very clear plan going forward, so we don't waste too much time spinning wheels or doing our own research. I mean, let's get the experts in right away.
I guess my point is I think that a full-time person, if we hire the right person, could do that plenty. I'm just reluctant to spend a very high bill rate on a consultant when we know there will be work to do in the long term.
I think they're different skills though, aren't they? I mean, you've got someone who looks at this on a daily basis, such as a consultant as far as how to set it up versus someone who implements it and implements that plan on a daily basis. I mean, maybe it's a person who has both those skills that can do it, but I mean, in my mind, when I hire consultants in my work, those are different skills from identifying, creating the plan, and then actually the day-to-day operations of the plan.
I would agree with that for something that's set it and forget it, but with economic development, it's going to be reassess it every year, every 2 years, reevaluate the strategy.
So in that case, then, if we were to go full-time to begin with, that person is just so unbelievably important to the success of this. I mean, that's, in my mind, close to a national search, because you want to make sure you get it right, because this is, in my mind, one of the most vital things to our town. And if we don't get that exact right person, and maybe we try 2 or 3 years and that person isn't that great, we've lost 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I'm not ready to, I mean, this is a 6-figure salary person.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to write a job description for a 6-figure salary person at this point. I want to dip my toe in the water, hire the consultant, ever suggest, hey, you guys are, you need somebody with the expertise in complete redevelopment from big box to multi-use, or let's fix the Colton, let's get rid of, unfortunately we don't have too much influence over Hamburger Row, but, let's focus around down there, who knows? So I personally, I agree, if I could agree with both,
Yeah.
I want to kind of start on the consulting side because I'm not exactly sure what I need.
Sure.
But I do know we need somebody focused on this full-time. And maybe at the end of the consulting assignment, we don't need a 6-figure person. We need somebody who's doing the blocking and tackling and making sure that the developers have, I's dotted and T's crosses to whatever the saying is. I don't exactly know what we need. And so I'm personally not quite ready for an employee, full-time employee.
I think we're overthinking whether we want a consultant or a full-time employee, and what we really should be thinking about is what do we want this person to actually deliver for us?
And what can they deliver?
Right, and so I think, the first thing that we need is somebody to come in and realistically do a census to identify the challenges that businesses that are operating or thinking about operating in Superior are going to face, right? We've got a population of 13,000 people. This is largely a bedroom community where people are commuting. We don't have an office base, so restaurants with the lunch crowd tend to struggle. We need to have somebody who can clearly specify these are the challenges, and as a result of that, because we don't have an office base, our property taxes aren't necessarily competitive with a community next door like Louisville, who has that. And as a result, local businesses, when they're looking at Louisville versus Broomfield versus Superior, are going to say, well, if my rents are going to be this much higher because the property taxes are higher and they're going to get passed through, okay, is that an opportunity for us? There may be things that we can fix, and then there may be things that we can't fix. But regardless of what those answers are, we need to have that information kind of spelled out from an expert who does these sort of things. So then they can realistically then deliver, okay, well, these are the proposed solutions, right? Because if there's something that we can do in terms of changing, the property tax rates, okay, let's see if we can do that. I mean, if there are incentives that we can offer to try to attract new businesses, let's see if we can do that. If this is a discussion, with the fire district or whatever, if we need to have these discussions to try to make ourselves more competitive, at least we'll have the information from the onset of the consultant's agreement. So then we're not just scattershot saying, well, we want you to fill the vacancies and keep all the existing businesses happy that are here and helping them thrive. Because I just think we're putting the cart before the horse if we're trying to identify opportunities without understanding fully what the problems are, and then what problems are solvable and what problems are just, they are what they are, because we're 4 square miles and we're not going to grow to be 20 square miles. And so I want whoever it is that we're hiring, whether through a consultant relationship or an employee, to have that top of mind and say, these are the things that I would do if I were coming in here on day one, and these are the things I'm going to be thinking about. And then I'm going to come back to the board and say, okay, here are the problems. These are the ones that we can fix. These are the ones we can't fix. And then, you know, the problem will take care of itself. If it's a consultant and they're that great and they want to work here full time, then bring them on as a full-time employee. If that person is not a consultant and wants to do this full time, well, then let's talk about hiring that person. But let's get the right person who can actually do the job, so we, you know, get a good return on our $150,000 that we're spending on this goal.
So good information is what I'm hearing from several, that's kind of, we need more information about the town, about what we can and can't do. I mean, with Brixmor and the marketplace, for example, you know, they've got full-time people devoted to filling vacant spaces. So I don't think we want to be hiring someone to fill vacant spaces, because that's what they're trying to do on a daily basis. I mean, they have rent. I mean, a big reason, you know, there's rents and factors that we can't control. And anybody we hire is not going to be able to control who can and can't go into those spaces. That's their task to control that. I think what they're going to come back to us with on the redevelopment is some kind of financial partnership, and that's what we can do as a board. You know, we can participate financially, tax credits or otherwise, to get things redeveloped, get it freshened up for the next 20 years. And I think that's, when it really comes down to it, that's what we'll be able to do. We can get consultants to try to bring this or that, but I mean, at the end of the day, we need some structural changes to the marketplace, and I think what we can do is financially help them.
I would also like to see the consultant full-time, whoever we bring on, work to foster closer relationships with Brixmor, with Rock Creek Village, with all those areas. I'm thinking of, yes, we have financial ability to help, but there's also the component of the town is influential. We can get people to go to those businesses. We can have CAPS host events at those businesses. I mean, I think that's a big piece of this, is getting people to those businesses and helping them be as successful as we can. And I think the closer our relationships are, the better we're able to work together and have them say, hey, you know, we have a new store opening. Can you try to get people to go there and patronize their business?
Well, the chamber is,
That's been a big
yep. chamber function, but the chamber has grown a lot, and I think it's kind of, you know, the discussion that we've had about the chamber is that, you know, they kind of grew into, it's almost two different entities. The event entity that really had a lot to do with 4th of July, Chili Fest, and a number of chamber events. But then there's also the business side, the business retention. What can we do to help you? How can we plug our residents and our committees into your businesses? And that's, there are some similarities between the event side and the business side, but there's also a lot that are not. So, and is that, it's almost more than one person, I think, it handles. I mean, their new executive director is going to kind of have to figure out, you know, is that, which direction are they going to go in on that? And how do we, as the town, with this new person, how do we complement that?
I think Mark kind of hit the nail on the head. This first step needs to be somebody that can come in and conduct some analysis for us. You know, talk to me, talk to Mark, talk to Kevin, talk to all of us on an individual basis, so they can sort of start to synthesize what are the messages that are out there. Because when you're in a group and you got 30 minutes, you can't really solve the problem. But if you can hire the consultant who can actually spend some time, almost in a focus group sort of relationship, really start digging into some of the ideas that people have, because I just think there's a lot of ideas out there, and we're not going to be able to do all of them. And some of them, they may be taken care of by other sources. But I think there are some unmet areas. You know, we've certainly heard some of the things that have gone on with some of the businesses in the Safeway Shopping Center, and how do we get somebody that can kind of be a voice for those folks? And, you know, when Sonny struggles to stay in his store for various reasons, how do we help that happen? And I think we are trying to do that, because Matt's going to be a part of a meeting, but to me, that's one of the things that, it's not necessarily the chamber that can help them. It is the town that can help them, because we have a little bit more clout. So I really want somebody who can come in and dig and talk to us more and help us figure out what it is we want to do. To me, that's the first step, to really listen to us and where our concerns are, because we're not doing it right now, not to the degree that I think we all believe is important, so we continue to grow it. You know, how can we push people to want to be a part of Superior? We're not getting it done with the consultant we've got going on right now.
Okay.
So in terms of actionable next steps, staff is going to, look for a consultant now that will be going to give us this analysis that Sandy spoke to, first and foremost, and then, you know, once that kind of first stage of their investigation as to, you know, what the town is facing right now, once that's complete, then they can go to stage 2 and actually try to implement some solutions.
I'm sure that will have some steps, and part of their reporting will be, here's the things you should be doing next.
I'm interested in redoing my kitchen and looking for a designer. I know there are some kitchen folks that will both do design and build, and maybe I'll be lucky enough to get a design and build, but I'm ready to hire a designer. We need a designer for economic development, and maybe we'll get lucky enough that that economic development designer will also be the person to build the economic development itself. But I'm not convinced of that. So I think that's so I think staff needs to get on the phone and try to get some decent candidates. I don't think this is I forget the name of the firm that's doing work for us in Northwest area.
Clarion Associates.
I don't think it's Clarion, right? But it's somebody that's worked for a Clarion. I don't, because I think well, I guess I have 2 reasons to think that. Number one, I'm not sure it's the right, you know, it may be might not be the right tool for the job. It may be too much, maybe horsepower for what we initially need to do, which is a bit of an assessment. And second, that's a pretty expensive shop. So.
I also still recommend, you know, at least in parallel, we try to engage the other economic, the EVO, DEVOs, and the neighboring Boulder communities. It doesn't have to be a presentation to the board, it can be a subset. I'm happy to reach out to, you know, Erie or others and just, you know, educate myself, because I like to learn from the failures of the others. You know, Erie's struggled. They've definitely got an engine going now, so it'd be good to hear at least what's been working for them.
And I'd like whoever our consultant is to also, you know, almost do it as current state, future state gaps. Who are the communities, not in Colorado even, that we are trying to emulate? You know, what do we want this to look like in the future? But I definitely want to see that future state as part of it, so that we can then put together what's our roadmap for actually getting there.
So under this agenda item, we had Superior Marketplace redevelopment, which we talked about. We had downtown Superior Parks 1, 2, and civic space. Is there more that we'd like to talk about on the?
Why do we have Parks 1 and 2 here?
Well, this was my topic. I put in there, it's not necessarily totally fitting in with economic development, but, you know, we've had, I don't think we need to necessarily have a conversation about economic development as it concerns downtown Superior, because obviously they're going to be bringing their commercial core FTP to the town, and I mean, to the extent that we hire a consultant, yes, that consultant will be talking about the fact that we're building a downtown and we want all this to be a success, bless you. You know, on Parks 1 and 2, on the civic space topic, you know, this is one of those topics that, you know, we've talked about, at least for the 2 years that I've been on the board, multiple times without much of a solution. And I am hoping that we can actually solve this problem this year. That's why I put it as one of my goals to talk about. The conclusion that I have come to is that the agreements that we have in place are unworkable and need to be amended. So we need to have a signed written agreement that is mutually acceptable to Ranch and mutually acceptable to the town. And, you know, obviously it takes two to tango, and that may be impossible, but I think that there's really no other way that we can deliver that $10 million park/civic space commitment. And I'm just really concerned that it's going to be one of those things that if it materializes, 10, 15, 20 years down the road when it's worth half of what it's worth today. And I want our residents to get the value that they deserve as soon as possible. So, you know, kind of to that end, we started talking with Ranch last year initially about, at least the conversation about advancing funds for Parks 1 and 2. Those talks broke down. I think they broke down because of miscommunication with council, frankly, on Ranch's side. I am cautiously optimistic that maybe we can, you know, reinvigorate those discussions, not necessarily specific to Parks 1 and 2, but just to the concept of getting, you know, the money and getting the value that was promised to the town. One of the things that, you know, Kevin, you mentioned, you know, was entertaining a discount to get something, a bird in the hand today, right? So, you know, I wanted to just bring it up to the board to see kind of what's the board's appetite for making this a priority to try to solve this, because I think if we don't, this is going to be one of those things that we will repeatedly talk about generally in retreats, and the can will get kicked down the road, and ultimately the only way that we will ever see any benefit from that commitment is if and when it is convenient for Ranch, if ever, and that concerns me. So I want to see us focused on this and impressed upon Ranch that this is something that we are not willing to just wait around for on their schedule, and that we want to make sure that this is something that they're going to deliver on, because the agreement says that it's to be mutually agreed upon. But I think that the way that this kind of issue has been addressed to date, Ranch feels like they can deliver on it when it's convenient to them, and that's not in keeping with the spirit of the agreement. Which is why I think ultimately it's going to need an amendment.
I agree. I mean, I think we need to, it'd be great if we can get on the other side of it, solve the $10 million issue. I just don't, I'm not sure that we have alignment amongst this board on the linkage between 10 million and Parks 1 and 2, right? The 10 million is unambiguous. We need to solve the $10 million problem. Ranch Capital isn't showing up to work sessions without their attorneys. So, I mean, we're not going to solve it without a amended piece of paper.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think, you know, having it be part of our goals kind of kicks it to the top for me in terms of priorities. I don't know that it fits in economic development, but it's part and parcel with downtown Superior development. And I mean, basic math, you know, 5 years since we signed that agreement, you know, 10 million is worth 6% less. So, you know, we've already lost money on just waiting on it. But I mean, we always knew it was going to take time. It's just a question of if we go another 5 years, you know, 10 million, it's going to look even less. So if we can get 8 million out of them now, 6 million, whatever, you know, that discussion needs to happen with them soon.
The longer we wait, I mean, right now, we're in a good position to force the hand because we know that they have so many FDPs coming forward, and we heard at the work session, timeliness with those FDP approvals is important. mean, my only point was, it's a good time to have the conversation now.
Good, well said.
Yeah, and the only thing I would make a comment on Parks 1 and 2 versus civic space, you know, for me, the civic space is the bigger priority right now. And as we see, if we see a commercial core start to develop, that civic space needs to be in there. And so from that standpoint, yes, I agree, it's part of economic development, you know, but.
There is 0% chance that Ranch Capital builds a civic space without a significant multi-million-dollar kicker from us to this town. The only way we're gonna get a multi-million-dollar kicker from us to them to build anything over there is with part of that, with all or part of the 10 million, discounted or not. There's a very significant chance that parts 1 and 2 are going regardless of whether or not we kick all or part of the 10 million to them. So that's probably about as much as I'm gonna say on that topic, but I am prioritizing the civic space well ahead of 1 and 2 as it relates to that 10 million, which is why I get a little queasy when 10 million is associated with parts 1 and 2, because I do not think that everybody is aligned on that. I think most people know what I'm saying.
Thank you, you were clear.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, I think the genesis of the problem is that when you read those agreements and they're not well drafted, everything is subject to the FTPs that are going to be presented to us, right? And so even though whether it's parks, whether it's an expanded town hall, whether it's civic space, whether it's a library, whatever it is, right? There's lots of different things that could constitute civic space. Ultimately, everything is dependent upon us mutually agreeing with Ranch that, yes, this is what we want the $10 million for. But if the civic space commitment is basically subject to modification and subject to whatever's being defined in the FDPs, we can approve the FDPs that come before us, but we're not actually presenting the FDPs, right? It's the developer that's presenting the FDPs. So, to the extent that we want to insist that civic space be incorporated within those plans, they need to be aware of that so that the FDPs that they are preparing have civic space that is acceptable to us in those plans, because otherwise the whole thing's going to get built down and we're going to say, where's the civic space? And we'll say, well, we already planned it all and you approved it all. So, this is just one of those things that it's not acceptable to me for us to just be reactionary and to just consider these FTPs that are coming down the pike, and we're going to see a lot of them this year, and obviously we're going to start seeing stuff in planning area 2, which is where the civic space would go. But to the extent that Ranch is intending to build that, or we're going to take the position that we expect them to build that, they should at least be aware of that position and planning accordingly. And I think ultimately it's going to require us to have some sort of renegotiation of the commitments. But that's a discussion for another date. But I just want us to be thinking about this top of mind, because if we don't, another year is going to go past, no progress is going to be made, and we're going to be sitting at our retreat in 2019 or 2020. And we're going to say, well, what are we going to do about the $10 million?
Well, and Mark, I grabbed the 2018 proposed priorities, top 3 in downtown Superior, parks 1 and 2, resolution obligation to schedule improvements, clarification of $10 million funding with developer. This is a year old,
right? And
we're basically refreshing it this year. I think we have to have some absolute milestones on what it is what we want to accomplish. So we're not, like you said, staring at the same piece of paper.
So Matt, what discussions has staff had about civic space within that downtown core development, or have you had?
Yeah, so Morgan and Ranch Capital are partners on those 5 blocks, and they had discussions with us about putting civic space on block 5, I think it is, the first block after the internal roundabout, and our interest in having civic space there.
Yeah, which is one of the ones they're not planning to develop.
No, it is.
No,
Yeah.
5 is.
5's
5's after the roundabout, the second roundabout.
Oh, the
so-
second roundabout.
Yeah, the second roundabout, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking 5 was down this way.
So that's the most recent discussion we've had with them as they're preparing their concept plans. So I haven't seen what it looks like, how much space it is, but
Okay. That's not on the plaza itself? That's
no, it is not.
to the,
Block 5 is
yeah,
this
yeah,
one.
it's to the west of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ryan from Avanti is obviously coming to the next meeting.
Which meetings?
When is Ryan going to come again? Maybe we could have part 2 of the meeting that we had in your office.
Right, yeah, I
Okay,
can.
thank you.
Yeah.
Same attendees.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right, we good to move on to committees?
Sure.
Yep, okay. All right, Transportation and Safety Committee, meeting frequency, citizen-led committee, other thoughts?
I would really like to see the Transportation and Safety Committee meet monthly rather than quarterly. I think quarterly isn't often enough for things to really progress, and I think the meetings that have been held, they've always had longer agendas. So I think it would behoove the committee to meet monthly, just like all our other committees.
So I agree. I mean, I brought this up previously, requested this was on the agenda. Both, I think the frequency of the meeting is insufficient to address. I don't think it's fair to the community when we have a request from a resident about a problem and say, okay, well, we'll put it on the next Transportation Safety Committee meeting in 3 months. Stay tuned. And then, secondarily, like I raised this before, and I understand Kevin and I disagree on this, and I think maybe Ken and I as well. I think that the committee itself could benefit from drawing upon talented individuals that live in our town. And, we have a really talented resident base. And, we might have civil engineers and traffic engineers and, who knows, what resources we're kind of leaving on the table right now, doing it unilaterally as this kind of group of 3. And, I'm of the mindset that just because we've been doing something for the past 15, 20 years this way, doesn't mean that that's the way that we should continue to do things. We should at least question it and see if there's a way to, change things for the better. And so, I'm not trying to necessarily change things just to change things, but I'm just questioning if we can be more effective. And I think we can if we met more regularly and if we added talented individuals from our community onto the committee.
Are you proposing that it be a mix of board members and committee, and community members, or just a community committee?
I'm open to any suggestions. I think the thing that I would really like to see is, to the extent that there are people who are interested in our town in joining the committee, and so, whether that means that they replace the board or just supplement the board, I don't really feel strongly one way or the other. I just think that if we're leaving, talent on the table and not drawing upon that talent, that I think we're doing a disservice to the town.
So I think there's it depends on what our priorities are, because I think both of them have very strong strengths and clearly some weaknesses. I mean, one of the best things about the Transportation Safety Committee, as opposed to all the other committees, is that there can be immediate action. You have board members that can direct staff and who can direct funds. So the pilots that get done, or the stop signs, all that can get done now, and it has gotten done. If it's just people from a community, that goes away, because you can't have residents directing staff and directing funds. We've That's just one of the rules for all of our committees right now, unless we go back and rewrite the rules for all of our committees. I understand the point that we're leaving some talent off the table, which is a very valid point. So it comes down to what is more important for this committee, responsiveness or broadening the expertise base. And I think one of the best things about the committee from an outsider's point of view for the past several years is I've liked the responsiveness. I agree, completely needs to meet more often, whether it's every other month or monthly. That'd be beneficial. My preference is the responsiveness of having actual board members to be able to give direction has been useful.
I would propose that I think we can be just as responsive with it being a citizen-led committee if the board then acts upon the recommendation of the committee. I think one thing I've heard from several of our committees is the frustration that they make a decision and the board essentially rehashes the decision. So I think if we as a board appoint people to the committee that we are willing to take their recommendation, it really doesn't slow down all that much how responsive we are to getting things done, because, you know, the meeting is held within 2 weeks. We have a board meeting. We approve whatever the committee has decided, and staff can move forward with implementing the recommendation.
I gotta jump in here. I mean, we can't, if we're gonna have a citizen committee, this citizen committee can operate differently than all the rest of our citizen committees. So, you know, just like OSAC makes a recommendation, it comes to the board, we have to make a decision. You know, I understand the frustration of the committees, having been on one for many years, but, you know, the Transportation and Safety Committee deals with something that is an essential part of our community, which is the safety of our citizens. The rest of them deal more with topics that are related to things we want to do to improve our community, and we have to do trade-offs. So I'm not particularly supportive of us putting citizens on there because of the fact I believe it will slow the process, because we can't make this process for this citizen committee any different than any other one. And then the other piece becomes, how do we make the I'm not an expert on knowing if somebody is an expert in transportation safety. I mean, we try and put the best people on our committees, except for what we tend to do is opening comes up, we put somebody on it. We wait a few months. We don't normally have the situation where we're, you know, picking from a bunch of people. Hole opens up, we fill the slot. So, you know, I'm very supportive of it going to, you know, every other month or something, but I really feel like if we put citizens on it, then it becomes an advisory committee. It is not the Transportation and Safety Committee. It cannot operate the same way, because now we're going to have to, we really and truly should treat it just like we treat all of our other advisory committees. I mean, I understand the frustration of the committees, but it is our job to make the tough decisions on how we spend our money. But when it's safety, it's a very different issue.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about the potential for it getting, you know, a couple of members that then decide kind of collectively that they want to go a certain way with a certain project, and then kind of have this expectation, oh, well, we approved it, and the board should approve it. And that's not, I think that's kind of lining it up for problems. So I'm going to support a lot of what you said, most of what you said in terms of the increased, the increase the frequency. I'm supportive of increasing the frequency, but the makeup of the committee, I'm happy with the way that it is.
Yeah, I think so. I think we could kind of see which way this is going, but first, I think you're exactly right. We should be constantly looking to improve everything we do, right? This continuous improvement is exactly what we should be doing. I think when you look at transportation and safety, it's actually really, it's been great the last couple of years from what I've seen previous to when we were on the board, and we, you know, Mark and Chris were great, and, you know, I live on a busy road, so it's something I think about every day, right? So, but I do think it's a pretty highly functioning committee. Some of those other committees have been upset with recommendations they've had. Committees have had some great recommendations, but they've also had some doozies that we've had to look at and say, hell no. And it requires us to review everything that those committees are recommending. The other difference, I think, with traffic and safety, unlike the other committees, we have a highly compensated, great employee leading traffic and safety every day. We don't have a employee that focuses every day around environmental sustainability or open space. That's, Alex is the staff person responsible for traffic and safety. So that's another reason why traffic and safety looks different. With regard to the comment, we don't want to leave our citizen experts kind of out in the community. What I like about traffic and safety, it's the only committee, I think, where people are super engaged. We have packed rooms with traffic and safety. I don't think OSAC is packing the room. ACES is not packing the room. We are packing the room, and we're getting comments, and we're getting a lot of comments. So effectively, we have and we're hearing those comments. So effectively, we have a citizen-led committee that revolves every time we have an issue, because we have done a really good job setting the agenda. If you have a citizen-led committee, we've heard from staff, it's hard to get the agendas out from citizen-led committees. So we do a good job getting the agenda out there, notifying the potentially impacted community, and then we're drawing that community in for comment, and we are listening. I think that's another reason why it's different. In terms of the cadence, I suppose I'm fine increasing the cadence. I personally don't think we're going to have enough to talk about on a monthly basis, so we'll probably cancel a month. I'm fine with doing it monthly, and then we cancel one or two if necessary, but, it's Mondays, so it doesn't really conflict with, so I'm the liaison. As long as it's Monday, I can usually figure it out. Or one of the three liaisons, not a liaison, just one of the three members. So I'm fine with increasing the cadence. But from being on it, it does feel like, and it's work for Alex too. So before we agree it's monthly, we got to make sure that Matt and Alex have the bandwidth to manage, because a lot of it is we're going to do a study, tell the community about the study, communicate. Can we do that on a monthly basis? I don't know. So I think I'm fine with monthly, but I think maybe a decision can't be made without Matt and Alex noodling over it a little bit.
Could we, since we're going quarterly, and we haven't gone quarterly for quite some time, could we try every other month for the next 6 months and then maybe assess it from there? And obviously, Alex has got to weigh in, but I'd like to believe that giving him 8 weeks versus 4 for a turnaround is a little bit better.
Right.
But if we throw a 4-week turnaround at the front end, he's going to probably try to retire sooner than we.
So I'm fine with keeping it a board-led committee. I would really push for it to be monthly, even if it means that certain topics aren't talked about every month. So if there's a study that needs to be done on speed bumps, for example, maybe we say, all right, it's January now, we'll come back in March with this. It's not necessarily something that's on in February. But from a citizen perspective and as someone who's presented to the committee, I was extremely frustrated when I first was told, all right, wait 2 months for the meeting. I presented at that meeting, and then I was told wait another 3 months to come back to it. And it's not the fault of the members, but that's how the cadence works, and that then became 6 months to get something addressed.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so every other month or month?
I personally think we really got to ask Matt and Alex.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah, we got to add like a quarter-time head to just work monthly, then we got to really rethink it.
I look forward to you having the conversation with Alex on this. I wish I was a fly on the wall.
He may talk about retirement. No, he's not, so. But yeah, I'll report back to the board on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, telephone attendance.
This is another suggestion that I brought up, and one of the concerns that I had when we were staffing the committee liaisons was we were losing Sandy, Rita, and Chris, who were able to attend a lot of meetings, and now we have a board that's differently comprised of people a lot of whom travel for work. So I just thought that it would facilitate people's availability to participate in committee meetings if we gave the option for, telephone attendance at committee meetings. Because, for people who are traveling like during the week, and if you're going to be, in DC every Wednesday, and that means that you can never go to a PROSTAC meeting, or never go to an OSAC meeting, I think that that's just, it's unfortunate. Now, I recognize that there's definitely, benefits to having people in person, and to the extent that we can have in-person attendance, that should be encouraged, but it shouldn't be to the exclusion of somebody who actually really cares about a particular topic and has a passion. If your passion is Parks and Rec and you really want to be the PROSTAC liaison, I don't want that person to be precluded from being the PROSTAC liaison simply because your travel schedule basically precludes it. And I think what we should really be trying to encourage is that the committee meetings that we're all the board liaisons on are first and foremost the committees that we're all independently passionate about those committees, that we really like those topics, because I think that's where we're going to give the most value to the committees. So I think it's another process improvement. I kind of lump this under my headings of process improvements, and I just think that it would improve how we do things. So I think we should be open to it.
Are we opening it to all committee members or just for liaisons from the board?
I mean, my suggestion was really for the board attendance.
I mean, the question stems from, as you know, being the OSAC liaison, we've had people who are out of town on Wednesdays that want to participate. Mm-hmm. They are volunteers actively wanting to give back to our community, and they say, hey, can I call in? And in the past, we'd said no. This past year, people started trying it, and it worked with relative success, I would say. But I think it'd be something great to explore.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about it from the perspective of the committee members. I'm not necessarily opposed to it.
I mean,
So thinking, I was sort of against this, but now hearing you thinking about it, that's why these retreats are great. What if we experimented with just a WebEx committee? So I don't know, it annoys me when I have half people in a room sitting around a conference table, one or two on the phone. That annoys me. But if everybody's on the phone, then it sort of levels the playing field. What if we did a meeting just on the phone?
the biggest challenge is, well, a lot of times you need computer as well, so you can see presentations that are being posted up.
Sure.
That's the WebEx. How does
Right,
the public
but-
see it?
But the point then,
Recorded.
yeah, the point then
It's
is,
available.
They aren't able to see it live.
They
It's
could
still
also-
a WebEx, they can see it.
They could dial in. We
Okay.
mute their line.
Yeah,
They could
no, I'm
dial
just asking
in.
a question
We
because
mute
I
their
don't
line.
know.
Right. They could dial in, we can mute their line, and then it's also recorded.
yeah, the challenge is we're looking at just literal technical challenge. How many of you guys have been on WebEx conferences that do not go,
They always go swimming.
right? And if we were to make this I mean, yeah.
So let's go back to Mark's original
Right.
I guess
question.
for me is that we're making this more complicated than it has to be right now. You know, obviously I gave up PROSTAC, and I'm very passionate about PROSTAC, but I gave it up because I have a conflict. I'm doing DRCOG now. And then to say, well, we're all going to get the committee that we're passionate about, well, maybe we're not passionate about any of the things, but we're handling a committee because we've committed that we're going to handle the committee. So, you know, I don't have a problem with an occasional attendance, but there is value to the liaison being there, and being on a telephone or being remote is definitely not the same. You don't pick up, you're not going to pick up body language, you're just not going to pick up things the same way. And I mean, I think we're going a little more overboard than we have to go. But if we, you know, we certainly, the chair of PROSTAC has an incredibly difficult schedule, but he manages to get here for his meetings once a month. I mean, it's once a month.
But it,
So are we saying in lieu of the alternate, I mean, we've got the structure where we've got the primary and the alternate, are we saying that if the primary can't be there, the primary should be on the phone and the alternate should be in the room, or maybe the phone thing is if
Yeah,
either one can be there?
I'm open to anything. I mean, really, this was more of a topic and a suggestion for us to talk about before we had the committee assignments, really, because that's when I was, you know, I was suggesting it because, you know, if we had that discussion first, then we can figure out exactly how we're going to staff things. You know, and really, it was largely directed to Kevin and to Laura, who traveled for work, right? I mean, and so.
I'll be the first to admit, I mean, I picked my committees purely based on, I can't do Tuesday, Wednesday nights. Like those, I'm not here for them. And yet there's a lot of committees that I'm very passionate about that meet on those nights. And I would love to be the liaison. I would love to participate in those committees. I really like Ken's point, and I'm sure there are a lot of people in our community who don't have to be assigned to a committee, but would contribute if we made it easier for them to join the meetings and speak up.
I think you mentioned, I don't think you talked about it tonight, but when you mentioned that Boulder does this. What does Boulder do?
Boulder does public comment via phone,
Okay.
which is a little different.
Has anyone actually moved to where they're doing elected officials via WebEx?
That I don't know.
I have a feeling
I know Lafayette kind
Louisville?
of dabbled into it,
I
yeah.
know Louisville was grappling with this for a while because we were talking about it at the library board meeting, which is a little bit different. But they, at one point, you couldn't have any remote participation, but then they were starting, they were looking at the option, so maybe see what Louisville's doing too,
And
because I
Kendra
know
will
it's
have
been
her
a.
Build a legal memo.
Yeah, opinion on this as
But I know
well.
Louisville was grappling
Yeah.
with a similar issue, but part of their problem was their committees don't all meet at town hall.
If I recall the Daily Carom article, the city of Boulder allowed their council to meet and have some people call in, but those people could not vote and were not counted towards quorum.
Yep.
I assume that flowed down.
There's probably some legal traps, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I think it's a distinct direction we might want to really entertain, whether it's, you know, we pilot it, another pilot, pilot it with a couple of committees this year and see how it works.
Just as a quick add, so we've actually had 2 committees request that they not do phone in because they're worried about the trend of discouraging people from actually showing up. And both of those committees have approached staff about approaching the individual to step down from the committee. So you might catch a little bit of pushback from a couple of the committees on the phone conversation.
And I guess, you know, to Clint's point earlier about, you know, is this in lieu of the alternate? I mean, I agree, you know, with Sandy that, you know, in-person attendance, you know, being in the room with somebody, like there's really no substitute to that. You know, I think if there's ever a situation when a board member and the alternate can't attend, you know, this should certainly be an option. You know, if the board member can't attend because they're traveling, and if the alternate can't attend because they've got a conflict, then, you know, I think it would be beneficial better than having no liaison to have.
Although we did do a pretty good job this year of sending an email, you know, if the 2 primaries couldn't attend, I mean, I certainly had no relationship to ACES, and I went to that meeting, probably, I went to the last 4 meetings, because Chris had conflicts, so we do tend to cover for each other.
I think, yeah, maybe we do the phone thing as a last resort. If primary and alternate and no subs can fill in, then we consider phone in. But I agree. I think if we start going to this phone path, we could get people, well, yeah, I'd rather sit around in my pajamas and watch the game and, you know, play on the internet while the meeting's going on, but I'm there, you know, and chime in. That's not the same thing. It's just not the same thing. So I think it's you're not kind of a thing.
So I didn't want to try to squeeze it into this retreat, but I would like us to address it in a future retreat, specifically with regard to public comment for the town, for the full board meetings, as well as even public comment for any of the committees. So maybe we're not having committee members or liaisons call in, but, you know, finding some way to have 2-way communication with the public, they're people who aren't coming to town hall. They don't feel like getting out of their pajamas and coming here. but I would still like to hear from them, even
Yeah,
if it's
I completely agree. I mean, I
theoretical.
heard this a number of times from folks where because of young kids or old parents or something, they just can't make it, or work schedules. I mean,
Do
whatever.
they think we're ignoring their emails? I mean, that's what emails for.
Fair point.
To some extent, but I think there's something with, especially, I'm really passionate about the fact we put these videos online in real time, which I think is amazing. A lot of municipalities don't do that. They only offer the replays. But if we're putting it out there in real time, I mean, I can attest to the number of times I've sat there and been like, oh my gosh, I really want to make a point before they make the decision. I wish I could speak up in public comment, but I'm not there. And I think if we can offer people that opportunity, it's beneficial. It encourages you to engage more if you know you have a way to participate versus statically watching something that you can't talk back.
I mean, if Boulder's doing this, we can look at that. It's just, I think the one negative is it probably make the meeting, it could make the meetings go longer.
It could
They
be.
have 4 hours of public comment at times.
Yeah.
They're also a bigger municipality
Exactly,
with many more people, so I don't think that's an apples to
So I
apples.
want to me, I want to differentiate between and being ADA compliant. If we have somebody that we need to make accommodation for within this town because they have a disability, then we should make appropriate accommodation, including video equipment, telephone equipment. We can and should make whatever accommodations necessary. Assuming we're not referring to somebody for a 4-square-mile town, I think you get in your car and come down here.
If you happen to be in town that night.
I understand, and there's an opportunity for email, right? But if you want to engage real time with the elected officials and staff, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like parent-teacher conferences and
Right.
so on. I mean, there's not a call-in option for that. There's-
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I do, but let's go with that analogy. I do, like, I never make the scheduled parent-teacher conferences, but I've never had a teacher not accommodate my schedule to say, I could meet you on Friday morning or whatever. And similarly, so long as it's not a noticed public hearing, we all need to be available to say, I'm sorry that you couldn't make that meeting because you can't make daycare, but I will meet you for a cup of coffee or, you know, engage in a telephone conversation or whatever you like. And I think everybody's kind of doing that, right? I think but on the public hearing side, no, sorry. You know, we can't engage in those conversations. And if you want to have a comment, then you have to show up or you have to put it in an email Sunday before noon. But accommodating, again, unless it's an ADA, which we should maybe talk about that, do we need to accommodate for the ADA? And have we ever had that request? I just don't see the need. But I might be in the minority there.
I think the tech, go ahead.
Sorry. I would just say, you know, I like when we try new things out, and you know, when we anything that we can do that can increase our ability to communicate with the residents and make it easier for the residents to participate in, you know, their local government, I think is a good thing. So I would be open to it, see how it goes. I imagine that we won't get a lot of people taking advantage of it because I think people will recognize that it's going to be more compelling to actually come here, stand at the podium, look us in the eye, tell us why, you know, we shouldn't do something or we should do something. But you know, for those people who, you know, really are limited because of kids, because of, you know, work schedules, because of whatever their requirements are at home, you know, I think we're artificially excluding them from the process. You know, I think you will get some people who are lazy who just say, yeah, I'm going to stay at home and I'm not going to come to town hall. But I think what you're more likely going to have are the people who are coming to town hall are going to come to town hall, and I think you're going to get a new crop of people who wouldn't have participated without this process.
But I think if you feel passionate on the topic, you're going to figure out a way to get here. And, I mean, I just don't think we have to go overboard on this. You know, let's take some of the steps that we're talking about, communicating better on committee meetings and things like that, but to all of a sudden have a committee meeting where the public calls in, I could see it just going on. forever and ever.
The great example, or the great illustration to me was the oil and gas meeting. I mean, very little notice, very little time in between when the meeting got noticed, and we couldn't begin to accommodate everybody that showed up here. So people show up when it's important to them to show up. I want to respect the 9 o'clock hard stop time, and I also really want to spend more than 3 minutes talking about home rules. So I'd like to, I know there's liaison meeting frequency on here, which we haven't touched on, but I'd really like to pivot, if we can, to home rule and really try to get some direction on that, because I think it's important, and a number of people identified that as being important. So,
How do we get, just before we close and I don't want to say, can we invite for maybe Laura, in your opening statement, your comments on our next meeting, say, if you'd be interested, the town is interested in whether or not you think this is a good idea or a bad idea, or
Sure.
you've probably got the best social media presence out here, and maybe encourage people to provide comments on that.
I'll get people rallying around it.
Not necessarily rallying around the need for telephone, but, what are your thoughts around it? You think it's a good idea? Do you, members of the community, also think it's a good idea? Because my colleagues didn't necessarily love it,
Well, I'd like to hear
Thanks,
from both, if Matt could have, one of your staff do a little investigation with Louisville and Boulder and other communities that may be doing it. Because the other question I have is it the same people calling in all the time and engaging on it, and they really are just not really wanting to get in the car and come down here?
Right. Yeah.
Or are they seeing dynamic, important engagement on topics that maybe they wouldn't see a lot of? So I'd like to just hear a little bit more about how effective it's been in the communities that have done it.
And I want to just also, something that I just realized, if it's only during public comment on non-consent agenda items.
consent or non-agenda.
Consent or non-agenda items, thank you. Then it's not like it's a dialogue. There's nothing that they would have learned that they could not have emailed a few hours before.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that was also part of why I was pushing so hard to publish the emails sent to the board, because part of the value of making public comment is having other people hear your ideas. So if you are to simply email it in, no one else other than the board hears what your thoughts are.
We often will go out of our way to say, we received a number of emails.
Oh, I know.
Right. Okay, but it's not like, when I was thinking about that comment, I was like, all right, it's a really good comment, but they're not part of the dialogue. But most of our public comment, I don't think we could, under any circumstance, take a telephone comment related to a noticed public hearing. Why not? I don't know. When I was saying that, I knew you were going to say, why not? So that's why I said, I don't think. I don't know.
I don't see any, as long as the
It's
technology
evidence,
is
right,
available.
it's evidence, and it's
just audio recording.
Still state your name and address and all of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
There's logistics involved in it, but
Okay, so let's get a little bit
Right,
more
more
research,
info.
more info from our neighbors and
Yep.
others.
Not
Okay.
closed, I just want more info.
Right, agreed.
Sounds good.
Okay, now we have 12 minutes
Sorry,
to
took
talk
3
about
minutes.
home rule. So home rule, I'll just kick it off by saying, our next step, should the board choose to do it, is to pass a resolution saying we want to form a home rule committee and have an election of individuals to serve on a group that writes the charter. And this oil and gas scare just is further illustration to me that we need to be better positioned to quickly respond to things when we need to quickly respond to them. This was the issue of 2018. There could be some other issue of 2019 or 20. Louisville went home rule in the 90s because their particular neighborhood was threatened for a high-tension power line. And that was the issue that rallied them to get to be home rule, to try to fight that off, and that was what, and then the side benefit was sales tax collection and all the other benefits. We've been, Kendra has, every time this topic comes up, she highly recommends that we go home rule, and there's question of what's going to happen in the state legislature this session with respect to oil and gas, but should there be things that are more advantageous for home rule, cities, we're going to wish we'd already been there. And so I just think there's not a disadvantage for us. I mean, it's always easy to say no, don't spend time on it, but it's a valuable tool that cities and towns have to do this. It gives you a lot more flexibility and to be ability to act more nimble when it's necessary.
I mean, right now, we're a creature of state statute, and we're limited by the powers that the legislature has granted to us as a statutory municipality. And, what could happen, in this legislative session is, and, what the rumors are, is that, there could be some sort of compromise that comes out, and they say, okay, well, we're not going to do anything that's going to be broadly applicable to all of the municipalities in Colorado. But to the extent that you're home rule, you have the ability to do things that statutory municipalities can't. And then we're going to be scrambling. And that's a very likely possibility in my mind. I think that there's never a home rule municipality that says, man, I really wish we hadn't done that. We should go back to being a statutory municipality. It just gives you more flexibility. I think we're leaving money on the table. One of the reasons why we were talking about going home rule, a year and a half ago when we were talking about it, was we were leaving so much sales tax on the table because we weren't collecting it, we weren't able to do the audits. We were also talking at that point in time with online retailers and Amazon remitting sales tax. Fortunately, staff, Paul, Matt, Martin did a fantastic job, and now we're benefiting from that. So that kind of took a little bit of the urgency, I think, at least from the board's perspective, at least at that point in time. Because at that point, it was clear we were leaving a lot of money on the table. Now we're not necessarily as much. I think we still will, once we have the ability to do these audits, realize that we're still leaving money on the table now. Obviously, that's going to involve some additional staff time or some consultant to do the auditing work, to the extent that we need to. We also have the option of still using the state for collection purposes. But I just think in terms of, being in as much control as we can possibly be, I think it's foolish for us not to equip ourselves with every single tool in the toolbox to protect ourselves as fully as we want to and need to. So, I think that the time is right. We should move forward, get the Charter Commission going, and aggressively move forward with our home rule this year.
So Clint, you said a couple things. Number one, that every time Kendra talks about it, she highly recommends. That's inconsistent with my recommendation, so we need to close the loop with Kendra on that. That's a very specific phrase you used. So second, you said in the beginning.
Okay. I really,
Okay.
I'll stand by it.
I agree with that. I think
I understand you guys, I understand. Second, you said in the beginning, you said we're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. I think that was not necessarily the assessment that we had, even with the online retailers. And I do think there's, bottom line is, you don't know what you're leaving on the table. You don't know. The ability to audit is clearly something that's valuable, but for the record, we don't know that we're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table.
I've talked to comparable cities and towns of size that have gone home rule, and that is what they've collected. I think our staff is conservative in their numbers, so I think it's somewhere in between. But you're right, I don't have that.
When I think about audit, there's puts and takes, right? They're not all takes.
Sure.
So, and if our neighboring community is a home rule community, the money that we're leaving on the table is from somewhere, And if the neighboring, and presumably it would be from Louisville, and if Louisville is a home rule community, I sort of scratch my head and think, it just doesn't, my instincts are, the ability to audit is wonderful, but I'm not sure we're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. Third, I know we know more around this table than other members of the community, but I still don't think it's the quote silver bullet. I recognize there's rumors, the State House, I recognize that it might help us from the oil and gas, but I think we have a number of tools in our toolbox to effectively fight oil and gas. Home rule is going to be really, really hard, not just on us, but on the community. It's going to be a major focus, and this community has a lot of things that have to be done this year, and there's a lot of things this year that the community wants to get done. So I think if you asked 1,000 members of the community what they want, very few of them are going to say, I want you to be approving PDs from downtown Superior, but that's what we're going to be spending a lot of time doing. What they're going to say is, I want you guys focused on civic space. I want additional amenities for my parks. I want a swimming pool. I want you to hire more lifeguards so I don't get kicked out. There will be a long list of things. I don't think any of those 1,000 people we survey will say, I want you to focus your time and my time on home rule. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea and we should ignore it, but the same reasons why I didn't support it a year and a half ago are the same reasons why I'm just not embracing this now.
So your primary dissent is just towards opportunity cost,
Yeah.
to put it simply?
Right. I mean, you've read, I'm sure you saw the memos on it, right? I mean, this is going to be a lot of time. And I wish that the town had done it 30 years ago, but they didn't.
Why?
For the same reasons why you're articulating now, right? Because maybe they had ability to do so with a smaller, more effective board that didn't have PDs coming in front of them, every 2 weeks, that didn't have pressure.
I just don't think it's going to be that hard. I mean, 100 communities have done this. It's not like we're the first or second or 15th to do it. I mean, we pass a resolution, we get a group of people, they do the writing. I mean, the charters are written, we just tweak it, and then we put it to a vote. I don't see it.
Well, there's a few
distracting.
steps in between there.
There is.
I mean,
I'm
it's
very.
not, you don't just sit down and write it. I mean, you have to think about it, because you could, I mean, literally, you could change your form of government. The way that the trustees are elected. You could say, oh, well, as part of it, we're going to go to a ward system as opposed to, so all of those things come into play and can make it complicated. And so to think that it is automatically going to just happen like that when we've got so many things on the table, and nobody has put the memo in front of me that said this is going to save us from the oil and gas perspective.
And almost every
Yeah.
decision we've made in the last 2 years, one of us has gone out of the way to say, if we were a home rule community, would it have made a difference? And the answer, I think, on every one of those, with the exception of the possible silver bullet for oil and gas, has been no. Right? So I'm waiting for a reason to kind of the spark for the flame, but I just haven't seen it personally. And if Kendra's saying, I highly recommend, and she says, I'm highly recommending because of this, and it's in a memo I missed, or I don't see it in my notes, I'll search it through Engaged Citizens this evening. So.
Wouldn't be in there.
Right.
Okay.
Might be in a legal memo.
I'd like to hear.
Yeah, I mean,
Three.
I guess I don't know that I have a strong opinion one way or the other. I do like what all three of you already said. I guess my point is, it feels like this is a little bit reactionary to a threat from a startup oil and gas idiot of a company that really never actually had any intent of doing what they're going to do. I think home rule might be the right decision. Does it have to be now as a defensive measure against oil and gas? I don't know. If you sort of just take Highlands out of the picture for the last 18 months, would we be having the same conversation today about going down the home rule path? I think we're taking steps to sort of potentially put some safeguards in place for oil and gas development, which we'll talk about over time. And those may be sufficient if the true oil and gas development opportunity or threat, or whatever you want to call it, within the town of Superior is less realistic than we think. I do think there's some benefits to home rule, but in the context of at least the 2019 schedule, I don't know, as a few people have alluded to, I don't know how we fit it in. I actually don't know that there's a tremendous amount of money out there. A lot of the companies that are in the town of Superior are publicly traded. I'd like to believe that their auditors are sort of above board with respect to what is actually being remitted. Maybe there's some opportunity from some of the smaller companies, but I don't know. So, if it's to try to boost our coffers in the near term, then it's possibly worth pursuing. But if we zeroed it out and said the opportunity is $0, that we're not going to see any increased revenue, will we do it? If you eliminated the oil and gas piece of it, which, don't get me wrong, I don't want to eliminate that, but let's say that wasn't there and there's really no true pot of gold at the bottom of this. Is it something that we have to do and have to do now?
Okay. Quick.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I see home rule as more of a framework than it is an actual solution. I think if we put it in place, we then have the flexibility to add new rules that benefit our community, but I have to agree with Kevin and Sandy that I haven't seen too many applications of it that would benefit us that well. From looking at what it would cost to put it in place versus the revenue we'll bring in, it's not a compelling argument, so I end up really on the fence with Neil around. I could go either way. It's not a top priority for me. If others on the board do think it's a top priority for 2019, I'm more than happy to go forward with it.
I think if we are benefited in any way as a concern for oil and gas development, that in and of itself is a compelling reason to do it. I think the sales tax that we're leaving on the table, we don't know, but to Neil's point, my understanding with the auditing is, are the targets for Costco adequately reporting that information? Yeah, but is that money right now that's being collected by the state? Is the state actually remitting, what we are owed, and are we leaving money on the table? And to Clint's point, I went to the Colorado Municipal League meeting just a couple weeks ago. They talked about, generally just the benefits of home rule, and basically spoke to the same point that Clint was making, that the communities that are doing this are generally realizing way beyond what they expected they would realize.
I agree with most points that have been said. Honestly, the financial side isn't that compelling to me. We're a town of 4 square miles. Even if we get $100,000 in the first year of audits, I don't see that continuing year after year. At least I'd be surprised if it does. To me, the biggest benefit is it allows more flexibility if something were to come along and we needed it. My biggest concern probably relates more to what Kevin was saying with opportunity cost. I think if we're going to do this, there needs to be strong communication to our community about why we're doing it, what it is. Kevin's point of home rule is not going to be on the top of any resident's list when we ask them. It's because I don't think they know what it is. There needs to be education that happens. They don't probably understand the benefits, just like I think some of us are grasping at the benefits right now also. So I think there'd have to be a very massive kind of community outreach effort, especially because we're going to have to go out and actually do an election and get people voted to this commission. It's going to be a heavy lift to get all of this done. And I am concerned that we wouldn't be able to give it what it needs in 2019 with everything else that's going on.
Yeah. Okay, we're a little bit after 9, but I think we need to closely monitor what's happening at the state legislature. I'm not hearing a compelling reason to move forward with this, but Kendra's last email to us said,
Yes.
watch what's...
That was attorney-client privilege.
What's that?
Was not under privilege.
I didn't read it that way, but anyway, let's continue to watch the state legislature.
That's true.
Let's continue to watch what the state legislature does, and should we need to act on it. And something tells me we're going to be acting on this quickly, but we'll see.
Agreed.
We'll see.
But there's no acting on this quickly, right? We kind of have to get the wheels.
No, there's not, and that's why we should have done this 2 years ago, and then we wouldn't be having this discussion at all,
Or
but.
30 years ago.
And that's the thing, is this, we could easily kick this down the road and say, well, maybe, maybe later, and then, 5 years from now, some other thing pops its head up, and then, anyway.
I wouldn't be opposed to getting a more in-depth legal memo. I mean, I read what was on the Colorado Municipal League's memos, I read what was proposed out today, but again, if Kendra could help me understand the exact circumstances where this is more beneficial, maybe it becomes a bigger priority to me.
Okay.
Or Clint, you mentioned a few times we've done this recently.
Yes.
Just point us in the direction, and I think that'll help me understand how a town went through it, what happened, what didn't happen. Recent, I mean, Louisville's
Sure.
a long time ago, but there's some recent
No.
ones we can look to.
And I think that
Yeah, I've got it.
Neil's got a good point there. Give us the compelling reasons why, instead of just sort of general things. Kendra, give us 10 examples in the last 5 years where it would have made a difference, or point out to us 3 things that you think are coming down the pipe where it will make a significant difference. That will help bring it home to me,
Same.
so that I'm like, okay, I get it. Because right now, it still seems just a little bit beyond my ability to understand the impact.
Well, or furthermore, what's the urgency to do it in January, which is the timeline that town staff have
Yeah.
laid out there, versus waiting for the general election and tying that in?
Okay,
Makes
anything
sense.
further? All right.
Please go home and take lots of vitamin C tonight, because I am.
Oh, no.
I just started.
You didn't tell us that now.
No, I just started this afternoon, so
Oh,
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
hoping I didn't germify.
There is a flu going around, I've heard from
I've
others.
got a bit of, I'm not feeling 100% this afternoon.
Sick
so-
right now.
I know, we're in the
But I didn't
corner
get you
now.
sick if you weren't feeling good this afternoon.
Oh, you're still getting pinned on it.
Okay.
Which way is the internet going?
Take some cookies.
You just sit here.
I will actually get a little back to this.
There you go.